This
Liam.
conference will now be recorded.
Well, it's 9 o'clock. I have coffee, and looks like we got pretty well everybody here. So call the meeting to order. Let's see, open forum. I doubt we have anybody, do we?
No, none signed up.
Okay. I need confirmation of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder. So.
Mayor Woodbury.
Yep.
Liam, do you have a presentation?
No, I didn't get that created.
Okay, never mind. Carry on.
Okay. A mover and seconder. And the train just went by or something. That's going to be that kind of day, isn't it?
Barbara will move.
Okay, Barb. And seconder is Jason. Any discussion on the agenda? Okay, anyone opposed? That is carried. Any declarations of pecuniary interest, you can declare them now or at any time. And then I need mover and seconder to go into resolve the council recess, the special meeting at 9:02 to go into committee of the whole. So mover and seconder for that, please. Jim and Brian. Okay. Any discussion? No. Seeing none. Anyone opposed? Okay, that's carried. Next, we need the appointment of a chair. Brian?
I'll move that the Mayor Woodbury chair the committee of the whole meeting.
Okay, I'm so surprised.
Yeah, it may come up as a surprise to you.
Yeah, is there a seconder? Michael will second it. Any discussion? Seeing none. Anyone opposed? All right, that is carried. I saw Akash's smiling face there for a second, and then it disappeared, so he may be listening. Next we have the motion about the budget that we receive the staff report and that we recommend it to council. So do I have a mover and seconder to put that on the table? Okay, Jason and Brian. All right, Liam. I'll turn it over to you then.
Okay, so the initial operating budget presented has a requirement for taxation of, I guess I'm supposed to share my screen, am I?
You don't have to. I just made you the presenter if you wanted.
That probably makes sense if I did. There we go. Okay, so requirement taxation of $8,661,740, which is an increase of $671,439 from 2021. So my current estimate of the 2022 estimate for the blended income tax rate impact is $134,207. In 2021, it was $130,758. So that number assumes a 2% increase in the county tax rate, which I understand the county budget is right now at 3.75, and no change in the education tax rate. So I will update that number for the next meeting, which it shouldn't change significantly given all the other factors that go into it. It will change it slightly, but not significantly. The increase to 671 results in approximately a 4.8% increase in the 2022 blended tax rate, which is distributed between operating, special, and capital. So we've already talked about the special projects and capital of the 0.5 and 1.6. So the operating would be 2.7% of that 4.8. So operating 2.7, special projects 0.5, capital 1.6, for a total of 4.8. So right now, the budget assumes a cost of living increase of 3% or $160,000 impact, and merit increases of about 74,000. There's a report following this one regarding for continued discussion of what the COLA rate being approved actually will be. And the budget main causes of the operating increases are due to the addition of new FTEs, the administration finance bylaw assistant, which was already approved by council, a bylaw enforcement officer, a library digital services person, and an additional operator laborer. And I understand that the building department will be discussing potentially another building inspector, and the roads department changing an operator laborer from casual to full-time, which will have another additional impact that we'll discuss when we reach those departments. So something else that's not usually in the annual budget is the retirement of the CAO. So right now the budget anticipates the overlap of the position of 18 weeks. So that cost is estimated to be about $62,000. So I am proposing that that amount come from the tax stabilization reserve, thing as it's a one-time cost, and that is the purpose of the tax stabilization reserve. Rather than building in dollars into the budget, which won't reoccur, I'm suggesting we take it from tax stabilization. And in winter maintenance, I have analyzed the costs over the last 5 years. In past and in current year, actually, we were budgeting for the cost of winter maintenance. And then in past, we have been putting in the surplus or deficit of that operation into the winter maintenance stabilization reserve, which there's a sheet that we can, actually maybe I'll look at that sheet right now. There we go. Okay, so this is page 48 of 848 of the attachment 1. So I've summarized the winter maintenance costs from 2016 to 2021 projected and 2022 budget. And I've presented how much the reserve has increased and decreased. So in 2016 is when I created the tax stabilization winter maintenance reserve, where we had a $53,000 surplus. And then the following year, we had a $49,000 deficit, and then a $62,000 surplus, and then a $6,800 deficit, and then a $143,000 surplus. And we're projecting a $43,000 surplus for 2021. So that would bring the winter maintenance reserve to $246,000. So what I've tried to do here is to try to put some rules around the use of that reserve. So what I've done is I've taken the 5-year average of winter maintenance costs, which is, so the 5-year average is $349, and Jim is anticipating his actual costs in 2022 of $483,000. So I will refine these goals as going forward. So I started with setting some goals. So taxes raised must exceed the 5-year average of costs, 4-year actual minus 1 year projected. The budget increases or decreases of no more than 10%. Tax stabilization winter maintenance reserve should be no less than 25% of current budgeted costs. And the annual operating surplus deficit will continue to be contributed to the tax stabilization winter maintenance reserve. So using those assumptions I'm suggesting that we reduce the amount raised from taxation by 10%. So right now in 2021, we raised 491,000. So I'm suggesting in 2022, we raise 442,000, but we take out of the winter maintenance reserve 41,754. So that is me trying, and then that number will change year to year as winter maintenance costs go up or down and tax stabilization goes up or down. And that's why I'm suggesting we sort of put parameters around that. So there isn't a, basically trying to smooth the taxation impact so that the taxation impact will be no more than 10% from year to year. And if the winter maintenance reserve gets exhausted, well, then we'll obviously have to revisit that assumption. So I think we can talk about that further when we get to roads department. And so that is the budget overall. So I'm guess we will go through by department so they can do their presentation of their numbers. Well, maybe I will start with the variance page. And it's not good when my computer's already running this slow.
That's okay. That's kind of the speed that some of us are running at normally, so.
There we go. So this, on page 41 of 48 in attachment 1 is where I've tried to capture the significant variances within each activity. Because council right in their budget shows like total revenues and total expenses. So this is showing some of the significant changes of which revenue line and which expense line has happened in each of the areas. So, and I think I can make this a little bit bigger on screen. Okay. So I guess I will start since it's general revenues. So in general revenues, actually, before we go there, I'm just going to actually talk about growth for a second. So on the first page of this sheet, the growth for 2021 was 195,000, which was lower than the budgeted 268,000. And then for 2022, we're budgeting growth to be 228,000. So budget to budget, that's $39,000 less than we had last year. Then there's the increase in the OMPF of 21,000, whereas budgeting penalties and interest to be $35,000 higher. The Community Benefit Fund, Community Building Fund grant is to be going up by 10,000, which is then contributed to reserves and taken out in the roads department. Fees and charges up by 20,000 and building rentals down by 9,000. In administration, finance and clerks, the key things in here is in finance wages, the addition of the administration, finance, and bylaw assistant, which council has pre-approved, as well as we're anticipating the DC study to be completed in 2022. It was budgeted to be done in 2021. However, it's now going to be done in 2022. So that's why the revenue increase is only incremental, because it was in the budget for 2021 to be expensed and come out of reserves, and it's just budgeted for a higher number. And insurance is an increase in finance impact of 38,000. As council knows, their insurance overall is increasing 36%. And then in the administration department, the overlap of the CAO position, 62,000, and I talked about earlier, so which I'm recommending come out of the tax stabilization reserve, which is a revenue increase and then a expense increase as well. And then just a reallocation of the HR assistants labor from administration to HR. So it's just a reallocation, not new FTEs or anything like that. And that's the summary of the significant changes in administration, finance, and clerks. So the next section is council. So would Lindsay like to talk to that one?
I can, Liam. The main one here, oh, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah,
The
we
main
can hear you.
one that I'm looking at for the conferences, that's going to be different because majority are back to in-person, so we have that expense. And I guess obviously with the election in the next year, but other than that, I think that's all I have to add.
Okay. So transit is a small impact. Next area would be fire. Is Derek on the line?
Morning, everyone.
Morning.
Wasn't really prepared for this one. I guess does anyone have any questions, I guess, regarding the fire budget? Probably the easiest way to go.
Oh, Brian does.
Yeah, I have a question. Good morning, Derek. Your call-out fees are significantly higher at 32,000. Are we anticipating a particularly poor year in terms of call-outs, or why the increase there?
So revenue increase, those call-out fees, there's a couple separate categories. Those are not our, that doesn't have anything to do with our fire protection agreements. That is more or less to deal with car accidents, people burning garbage, stuff like that. It's kind of hard to predict the numbers on that. But it has been rising over the last couple of years. It's so hard to predict it.
And I can certainly appreciate that, and I understand completely that it is a variable target to hit. I'm just curious to know your rationale for increasing it, but I guess as you say, it's been increasing. The trend is in increase, so that's fine. Thank you.
Any other questions? Nope, I'm not seeing anything. Looks like you got off easy, Derek.
Thank you.
Next time we'll get you. Okay, Liam.
Okay, so the next area is police and conservation grouped together. So the major changes is the OPP costs increasing by $18,000 and the conservations for the SVCA increasing 11,000. Are there any questions regarding that?
Looks like a lot of quiet out there.
Okay. So next is the building department. Is Bev on the line?
I am.
Morning, Bev.
Good morning. Do you want me to go through it, do you, Liam?
Well, do you want me to take the first crack or do you want to start?
You take the first crack, please. This is
Okay. So Bev has budgeted an increase of 50,000 to permit revenues and an increase in the wages expense of 76,000. That's due to a shift to the existing building inspectors and the CBO that were previously allocated to bylaw enforcement. So now that the budget anticipates a new position there, that those wages have shifted back to building. additional legal fee of 20,000, and he anticipates buying a license which has an annual cost of $20,000 for permit maintenance. And then the transfer to reserves would decrease by 50,000, and we're actually taking 17,000 out of reserves. And I believe Bev has some further discussion on building activities that he'd like to share.
You're muted.
Yeah, you're not sharing very well right now. There you go.
I was trying, I apologize. I was in meetings with developers and contractors last week, and I've got some interesting facts that the numbers of building permits are going to jump drastically next year, probably by 100 houses. So to be honest with you, I think my budget is not reflecting that, and it needs to be reworked a little bit, increase, and probably increase on income and probably expenditures as well. I think I'll probably need at least a part-time building inspector to handle the extra workload if it comes through. I'm going to stop there and let you ask questions.
Well, I don't have a question. Mine's more of a wow. But yeah. Okay, Barbara.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Woodbury. Good morning, Bev. So this number is going to be reworked, but building is not tax supported. Building pays for building. And so how those numbers work, I would be concerned about the legal fees being only $20,000.
Okay, yes, I could see where that is a little low, or seems.
I would say significantly lower. I mean, yeah. I mean, I know that you have reserves in case it does go over, but I think the trend has already proven itself. So I think that's a little light.
It has. There seems to be a more resistance in the last couple of years before we've managed to get people on board before we went legal. But the last couple of years, I'm seeing more resistance, so I probably should rework that and look at that fee. It is spread out. The fees that we discussed before were spread out over 3 years. So, you know, but yes, I could rework that a little bit better.
Brian.
Thank you, John. Just to that point, Bev, for a little bit of clarification, at least on my point, this 20,000 you're showing under legal fees, that's an increase from last year. That's not your total budget for legal fees, is it?
No, I believe that's an increase.
Right. So what would the total, or maybe we'll get to that somewhere in this meeting today, but like
yeah, I would, I don't have that one in front of me. I'm sorry. I'll have to.
I think it was 15,000.
No, I'm pretty sure I'm higher.
Can you pull up the detail and so we get that number?
This year.
I was thinking it was closer to 50 last year, but.
Yep, just give me 1 second. I'll pull up the budget file.
Ooh, the new guy talks.
Yeah. He can't talk and be on camera at the same time. And look up stuff and give shots back to Brian.
There's conditions to my employment.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for my computer
right,
to pull up.
Yep.
Yep. So I've got the building budget up. Can you repeat the question, please?
What was the total legal fee budget item last year, or for 21 so far?
Okay, so the building legal fees, the 2021 budget was 15,000, and the 2021 projected is 35,000 through your worship to Councillor Milne. or Deputy Mayor Milne, sorry.
No, that's good. Thank you. Thank you for that. So yeah, I would concur with Councillor DeBreen that that might be a little bit light given the projected numbers that Bev was just talking about for building permits and so on and so forth. Is there just, if I might, Mr. Mayor, just
Sure.
further to that, Bev, is there some kind of rule of thumb or metric that, a percentage of building fees, from that number you could budget a legal fee, or no? Or is it just, yeah, I don't want to say shot in the dark, but I mean, that's what a budget is, but.
Well, I've always been instructed that about 1% would go to legal, 1% of your permits.
Okay.
But that being said, that's 1%. Sometimes that can be solved in $1,000 legal fee, and sometimes it's a $60,000 legal fee.
Yep.
That's the question: is how far do the clients, shouldn't say clients, the defendants want to push it?
Yeah.
And,
No, I appreciate that. So that I mean, you got to have some kind of rule of thumb to start to put a number on the page, and I understand that. So thank you.
yeah.
Any other questions? That's when you talk about your discussions and the number of possible more building permits, sure makes the numbers low for growth that the county's using right now. Yeah.
It was quite a eye opener for me. I'm glad we had the discussion because it does give me quite a prep. I thought last year was very good, but if they're talking another 100 homes more this year, yeah.
Yeah. Well, those lines of communication are key to all of this, I think. Any other questions for Bev? Brian?
I have another question, and I'm not entirely certain whether this is the right spot to put it, but I'll raise the question in any case. I had a conversation a few days ago with an individual, and the topic of cash in lieu for parkland came up. And as I understand it, cash in lieu generally runs around 5% of the value of each new lot. And that, I don't know where that's in the Planning Act or somewhere else, but that's the target you try to hit. Our cash in lieu number in Southgate is considerably less than what a lot would be valued at in Southgate at this time. So I'm wondering, do we need to revisit that to push that number higher? Because developers are going to look at the number and say, well, yeah, I'm going to pay you the few $100s rather than give you 5% of the value of my lot in land. And I may not be making much sense in my question, but I'm hoping somebody knows what I'm talking about and can give me an answer. I see Dave's waving his hand frantically. He's either going to give me an answer or tell me to be quiet.
I think he's wishing that he had the mute button, but it's okay.
Right.
Dave, go ahead.
I'll leave that for you to take the option you so choose. But the actual, so what you're saying is the lot. So what it is the original property value, not after development lot value. So the 5% is on the original, say the purchase price of the land when it was purchased for development purposes.
So if somebody was to sever a lot in Southgate, say let's pick a number, 1 acre lot, and that 1 acre lot is valued at, I don't know, what's a 1 acre lot worth? 120, 150,000 now?
250.
But
or 250 or whatever. So what is our cash in lieu number?
so cash in lieu number is for development, not like it's not small one parcel lot development.
Okay.
Now, I'll stand corrected, but I think Clint is frantically now. Please,
Yeah. So
go ahead, Clint.
We'll get to him in a while. Oh no, let's go to Clint now.
Okay, so I think I know where Councillor Milne is coming from. So we actually have two different numbers at the present time. So we have a number that we have for subdivisions, which is the 5% of the original value of the land, etc. That's calculated, and that's taken if they don't give us the land. Okay. In some cases, they give us the parkland, and that's fine. The other value is for single lot subdivision, so consents essentially, and that number is right now is set at a flat rate of $500 per new lot out in the countryside. So if you apply for a severance, it's $500 for each new lot that goes into the parkland fund, I guess, if you will. That's what it's set at currently. You raise a good point. It hasn't changed in probably 20 years and probably should be adjusted.
And I thank you, Clint, for that. And that's exactly where I was going, because if you use the 5% as a guide, we are grossly under financing our recreation programs and from the lots out in the rural areas. And you know what? I get it. It's another tax. I know that builders and developers might not want it, but we've got huge demands on our recreation facilities, and you know, we're looking for revenue sources. It would be interesting to see what surrounding municipalities charge for those lots out in the rural areas. I suspect it's going to be a lot more than what we're charging, and I think we should be looking at it to see if there's a significant revenue source there. So again, I don't know whether this is where we should be talking about, or maybe in planning, I'm not sure, or even recreation, I'm not sure, but I think a conversation should be had there.
Yeah, I agree.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, and we'll leave that to maybe the treasurer to figure out where to slide that and who to pawn it off on to figure it out. So,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay. So that's that one, I think. Thanks, Bev. And yeah, good luck with keeping up with all the stuff going on. Okay, Liam.
Continuing going the order of this analysis, so joint health and safety in K9, there are any significant changes there. Same with emergency management and events. Crossing guards, nothing too significant. And then we get to property standards, which is the additional bylaw enforcement officer that is being requested in the budget. So wages were shifted from property standards back to building and then being replaced by this property standards bylaw enforcement officer. And then the $25,000 that was budgeted to come out of the COVID reserve in 2021 is not repeating in 2022. So, any questions for Bev on property standards?
No. Not seeing anything.
Barbara?
Oh, yep, go ahead, Barbara.
So I'm thank you. I'm just trying to follow along and get down to see if there's any legal fees for property standards, and I don't see I'm probably scrolling by it for property standards. That too, as we hire a new bylaw, a full-time bylaw enforcement officer to go and pursue the complaints on property standards, those two may be challenged more. So forgive me if I can't find the line on this sheet.
So just so you know, you're not going to see a line for legal for property standards because it's been grouped into this number. So again, I'll defer to Akesh to tell us how much was budgeted for legal. There obviously was not a significant change from year to year for it not to make it onto this sheet.
I see.
Or maybe Bev has the answer?
Because property standards does come out of the taxpayer's pocket. So the more taxpayers complain, the more cost has to go into pursuing the complaint. Hello, Akash.
Hello,
Go ahead,
Councillor
Doug.
Dobreen.
If I could jump in, Your Honor, I see you're mouthing something there. I'm not sure what you're saying, but I do have
Sometimes that's good.
I do have it up in front of me. I do have $10,000 in the legal budget for property standards. Property standards legal cases are much quicker. There we go to court once. We either succeed or we don't quite often. There's very little back and forth. It's go to court with some evidence and the judge either says yes or no quite quickly, and the fine is set. So we also don't take quite the same lawyer to property standards. We have a paralegal that goes and charges a more, shouldn't say more reasonable rate because you get what you paid for, but we definitely don't pay him as much as we pay a barred lawyer.
A trial lawyer. Okay, thank you very much.
Any other questions on this part? Okay. Thank you. And thanks, Akash, for being right there with the answer almost. And we can move on to the next one.
Okay, so the next section is roads. So there's lots of activity lines in this area. So I won't be going through each line by line detail. I will just skip, for purposes of what's on screen, I will skip the, well, first I'll comment in 2540, that's the revenue increase 42,000 that I've talked about earlier coming out of reserves. So we're actually reducing the amount of taxation for winter maintenance, even though the costs are going up, because we have that reserve. And then all the capital impacts shown here, so I'll just skip down to the total. So roads as a whole, an increase of 228,000. A lot of it is capital and a new FTE. So I guess, does Jim have anything else to add to that?
Oh, there he is. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning. The cost of doing business is going up like everything else. Sand and salt is a little bit more in demand these days. As you can tell, with the way the weather's been lately and climate change, we are applying more sand and salt and not necessarily doing as much plowing so far this year. But those are variables that we can't foresee. So we try to pad the budget a little bit to make sure that the up and down can be covered for. So the FTE is in Dundalk. There was a situation where we had someone on some leave. We had a contract position for a while, and then that overlapped for a while, and the requirement for more work in Dundalk has been growing with the subdivisions. Obviously, with the water and wastewater, more so the water right now, more hydrants to flush, more valves to exercise. It just takes more time, and we are plowing some unassumed roads right now. We do get paid for them, but they are taking our time too, and those will be coming into the fold as well, and we won't be getting reimbursed for them in the future, but we are doing some of that work as well. We haven't taken on any unassumed sidewalks at this point. We hear about that, but currently that's not our practice. So at this point, I'd take any questions if anyone has any.
Thanks, Jim. Are there any questions on Jim's stuff here? Brian?
Thank you, John. Jim, on that notion of plowing or maintaining an unassumed road, do what we charge, or does the charge that we bill for that work, does it bear any resemblance to what our true cost is or would be if we did assume those roads?
Basically, that calculation is taken into account of a rough estimate of how much sand and salt we would apply. And we take those number of occurrences, we take the amount of time that we send a truck in there to do that work and average that out. So if it's only 15 minutes in and out, you know, if we go out 4 times plowing, we're charging an hour's worth of service at operator and truck rate. So it's variable in that sense as well, and just time management and an estimate on materials used is how we've been doing it.
Very good. Thank you, Jim.
Okay. Barbara?
To follow up on that, thank you. Hi, Jim. Welcome back. Shouldn't there be a minimum call out? I mean, if you're going out for 15 minutes, you still got to start the truck. You still got to call out a person. Shouldn't there be a minimum charge, you know, minimum hour? I just think that charging, 15-minute increments, I appreciate that you're calculating it, but we're doing a service to a development, and development should pay for development. I think that there's an opportunity there to make sure that we are factoring in insurance and all the other costs that go along with that.
Okay, Jim?
So we don't necessarily get called out for these occasions. They've been incorporated into our plow routes as we go. One of the subdivisions towards the south gets plowed a lot more sooner than the subdivision to the north. Now, some of that will change once the second truck does arrive sometime next spring, I guess, or early next winter sometime, that we will be able to divide the route a little bit. But it's not that we're calling out and going there as a minimum. It's part of the routine. So if council wishes to pursue that, we need to put it into the subdivision agreement that we're going to charge you X amount of dollars and charge it like on a minimum hourly basis or whatever going forward would be how I could see it maybe playing out.
Thank you. Thanks for the clarification. I didn't, that makes a difference when it's part of our normal route. You've just incorporated it in. But thank you.
Yep, thanks. Any other questions or comments? Not seeing anything right now, Jim, so thank you.
Yeah, just if I can just comment to Mayor Woodbury that you've noticed that we've had some ads out for school crossing guards. That's become a difficult position to fulfill. When the guards aren't there and one of them wants to basically step away and retire somewhat, but be available for casual, we're still not getting any calls for that full time. So we may have to look at doing something different to bring a little bit more cost into that position somehow, guarantee a bit more time or move it up in the pay grid. I don't know, but for somebody to drive in, we had looked at someone to drive into town for 10 minutes and then drive back out for the $15 an hour for an hour and a half a day. It's not worth their time. So we need to find a strategy. I know CAO Milner's going to talk with the school principals and talk to parent teachers maybe, but this is becoming difficult for us to handle. We have other staff that have been filling in, and it's taking away from their time and duties, definitely at a higher rate. And we're coming to an impasse here where we don't have staff that can fulfill the job, and maybe the crosswalks will have to be used at your own risk kind of thing going forward is a possibility. So we're having a real tough time with this right now.
Yeah, okay, Barbara?
Thank you, Jim. To that, like, I'm all in favor of us providing those crossing guards as a taxpayer's expense, but I mean, has it ever been a school board responsibility to fulfill the safety of the children crossing the road to their property, or has it always been a municipal responsibility? And I'm glad that you're in discussions with the school board, with the principal, and trying to find creative ways to fulfill that role. I just see this more as a school board responsibility.
Go ahead, Jim.
Not so much in the past. I don't know the original history of how the crossing guard got started. We know we were requested for the additional one. School boards, they have unionized employees. That's difficult because that's not part of their duties. So unless you get a volunteer, which we did have I think it was an EA last year that filled in for a little bit, but they don't want to cross those lines and help out, it seems. So that's the predicament we are in. Generally, these positions are filled by some elderly people. You can see in other communities as you drive through, or somebody who has young kids going to school and can take the time to do it. So it's a real challenge for our community right now.
Just one follow-up.
Yeah, and just before your follow-up, just to add, I know back years ago, the school board was not interested at all in anything off of their property. So I know from discussions years and years ago that that's what their stance was back then. The minute you hit the property line, they weren't going to pay. So go ahead with your follow-up.
So since these crosswalks are on a county road, and the liability, should there be an accident at one of these crosswalks, would it not be a fall to the county to pitch in here?
I
mean,
know
it's still the
Dave has
same
an answer for that.
still the taxpayer. It's still the same taxpayer, but you know, where can we get some help here?
Did you want to comment on that, Jim, or?
I don't know if Dave has had any discussions with CAOs or at the county level about crossing guards, but I haven't in the past. Know any other history that way.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, I think the crossing guard thing is something like the water main in a county road, not comparable, but I mean, the county are so distant from our community that we need to deal with it. The frustrating thing is there's very little engagement by the school board on issues like this, or on issues like school busing. People are getting answers that not our responsibility on some of these questions, and it ends up, it flops back to us as if we've got the answer for everybody. So anyway, working with the school board isn't all it's cracked up to be, and I'm saying that in a nice way.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got to say, though, that dealing with our local school officials, the principals and that, they're cooperative. It's a matter of what can happen with their policies and things like that, I think. So, yeah. And I know.
Thanks for qualifying that. That's
yeah,
true.
Yeah. And I know that, yeah, like you say, that any safety things like crossing guards, it's tough to get one of the upper levels, whether it's at or crossing Highway 10 in other municipalities. Hard to get the upper ones involved in that type of stuff because of the difficulties. So, yeah, got to be some way of handling it. And maybe, you know, if we had an employee that represented another municipality somewhere, they could look into what other municipalities do to help out with that. Any other questions, Barb?
I was just checking. It might be worth staff looking into posting or reaching out to there's a Facebook page called Parents and Caregivers for High Point. That may help get maybe people aren't seeing the ads. I don't know, maybe we can just reach out to the parents.
Yep.
we can think about it anyway.
Go ahead, Dave.
Thank
you. Oh,
Our plan is to try and get through to the parent groups within the schools and get their support to, even if it was a project by committee that somebody takes it once a week and spread it around. But what we're doing right now is not sustainable. That's for sure.
And likely costing us way more than it needs to by having not only other staff, higher pay grade staff having to fill in, but the time it takes to reorganize and things like that. So, yeah. Any other questions for Jim? Not. So, Jason, go ahead.
I kind of wonder if there's just a simple solution to this. Give them $50 an hour. Like, these are kids we're talking about. We have no problem handing money out for other stuff, so advertise it at $50 an hour is my opinion. These are our kids, and like I said, we have no problem spending money on everything, so let's spend it on that.
Okay, yeah, agree. Even if it was I don't know what we are now, an hour and a half a day, if we did a minimum 3 hour pay a day, something. So, Dave? And then.
I think, sorry. Yeah, I was just nodding my head more, but we have talked about a 2-hour call-in as maybe an option, but we're going to put some things on the table and see what it takes to get some help.
Okay, thanks. Martin? And then Brian.
Yeah, I was just wondering where are they on the pay scale now? Because I kind of agree with Jason. Give them a little bit more. It is only an hour and a half a day. You have to give them some incentive. So I was just wondering where are they on the scale right now? If somebody could answer that.
Jim?
I think if Kayla could, she may have it in front of her or get onto it quickly, but it's definitely lower in our pay band rating. It's near towards the bottom, and just probably over minimum wage, more likely.
Okay, that's obviously part of the problem. Thanks, guys.
Yep. Did you want a number on that, Martin? Or is that good?
Just curious. As I said, I tend to agree with Jason on it. But if it is at the very end, minimum wage is $15, that's certainly not enough to come in if you're coming out. And it looks like the parent groups in the schools are really, really good. They are definitely a group to approach to alleviate this problem for sure. So, thank you.
Okay. Kayla, did you? There we go.
So the current pay band is pay band 15, which is $15.68 an hour to $17.82 an hour.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Okay. Did you have anything else to add, Jim?
Not on this piece of discussion, no. As Dave said, we're trying to work through it. But we may have to come with a new tactic that this needs to go up in the pay band or provide a minimum or something.
Yep. Brian?
I was just going to say, I'm not necessarily disagreeing with Jason, but I would be very cautious to put an hourly number way out of whack from the pay bands here. I'd rather see a flat rate, because if you start messing with the pay rates in the pay band or this chart, it skews everything else. So that would be my comment on that. And further to that, and my earlier question was, and John alluded to it, we do have a resource here that lives in another municipality, and I'm just wondering if perhaps Akash could tell us what Grey Highlands did, because this can't be a problem that we've just found. I'm sure a lot of municipalities struggle with this as well.
Absolutely. There he is.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. Through you to Deputy Mayor Milne, in our budget that for Highlands Council debated recently, we did put aside $10,000 for a technical review of where crossing guards are required. It's to be noted that we really haven't been providing crossing guard service so far, and so staff brought forward a budget line item to do a technical review of where they should be, so that legally speaking, we're covered in terms of liability, and we're appropriating crossing guard resources at the appropriate places.
Okay.
That sounded sufficiently authoritative.
It
Thank
did.
you.
Didn't it sound official?
It did. It did.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions for Jim? Oh, Jason, go ahead.
Just wondering, this is outside of the box here, but we're talking about hiring a new bylaw enforcement guy. Maybe he'd have time to go there for the 2 hours a day. I mean, I don't think there's going to be that many calls. Is there? Like, just something to think of. We've got people employed anyway. Maybe he'd have time to go there for the 2 hours a day, or someone else. I'm just saying.
Yep. Yeah, it's an idea to look at for sure. Okay, so we can move on from that one, I think. Not sure where you want to go from here, Liam, or still with Jim?
Still with Jim. The next section is solid waste. So I will just highlight that this $49,000 increase here, that's the amount being contributed to the reserve for the future waste relocation effort. And down to so total impact right now is an increase of $69,650. And I believe Jim went through the wage budget detail with Akesh yesterday and discovered there might be an issue with that, with the wages in here.
Okay. Jim, did you want to comment on that, or?
Well, obviously the growth is contributing to more stops, more pickups. So what's happening is we do have the 3 trucks. We're having to extend putting an extra truck out earlier. We've shortened the days up on one of the drivers doing a bulk of the load. So that's worked out well with the team leader coming on board and having that organized. It's reduced over time with spreading out the workload, as well as her being able to drive the collection truck as well. But unlike some of the other stuff, this growth is creating more work for us, and we think we can still manage for the short term for 4 routes, but there may become a day when the 5th route will be required, and that'll take some extra resources possibly in the future.
Okay, thank you. I just had a little bit, when you talk about your team leader, a little bit of contact, just kind of in passing over the last, well, since we put her into place, and staff I've talked to and just kind of, observing, it's working out very well. So I think that's good to pass along as well. So yeah. Any questions for Jim on that? Okay. Oh, Brian?
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
Just when Jim was talking about, the possibility and inevitably a new route at some time, what metrics do we use to determine the service level? Is it, number of bins picked up per route, or the amount of time it takes to do a route, or how do we determine when another route is needed, or indeed if the routes need to be juggled somehow? Do we do that?
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, back in the beginning, we had one driver and one truck heading out. And then we put the second truck on and it went out occasionally to help out, especially Zone 4's gun dock. And now we're expanding that the trucks are going out in Zone 2 and 3 as well in around noon or so. And we can compete with that capacity to fulfill our needs for quite a while yet, I believe. It'll just mean that some other duties that are doing the compacting and cover or whatever, that eventually, you know, on the garbage week, that it will take more time and effort because we'll have instead of having an attendant there to deal with the cover in that process, that they're out on the road. So eventually that will catch up with us, but currently we are able to manage with having 3 trucks in the fleet and an extra driver to put out there at times. So with the addition of the Flato South development, we incorporated that into Zone 3 because there was a little bit of lag time and putting in with the extra driver that we thought that was the most manageable. We anticipate Flato Glenelg, the north, to be with Gundock on Zone 4. So again, until we branch out a little bit further, we are still managing with the zones we have. So it'll take that point where it's maybe creating overtime, then we'll have to look at changing our way of doing things. But
well, thank you, Jim. And if I might, Mr. Mayor, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there should be some kind of metric that tips the scale to say, yes, we do need now to rejig the routes, or we need another truck, or we need another driver, rather than just waiting and thinking, well, we're managing, but that's a subjective thing. We're managing. You know, different employees can do different things at different rates. And I'm not suggesting what we're doing isn't working. It is, clearly. We're picking up the resources. But I just think we need to, as we grow, and we are growing at a tremendous rate, I think we need to put in place a little more, less subjective system to determine where our resources go and how we increase them. Because and maybe it's just a function of growing so fast, but it appears that we're desperate almost, like we're just almost overrun here, and we're just putting out fires all over the place. We need to have some kind of, as I say, subjective system that tells us where is the tipping point. And I don't have the answer, but I'm just, it's more of an observation than anything. So anyway, those are my thoughts for now. Thank you.
Yep. Liam.
Just want to comment, and part of the asset management program is levels of service. So for what you're discussing, I think sort of connects with that, because when you're doing asset management, it's not capital replacement, it's capital and operating costs. So when we develop levels of service there, that should help with more subjective analysis for when we add people in solid waste or add equipment or whatever.
Exactly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah. Good. Barbara?
Listening to the conversation, and I keep coming back to development is supposed to pay for development, and our growth assessment, or the property tax that we gain through this development should more than offset the cost of plowing and sidewalks and garbage collection and those things. Are we behind? Are we providing the service? Because, I mean, maybe not, we're covering all that ground, but we are not enjoying the benefits of the taxation yet. I'm just concerned that we're not getting the apples, but we're spending the oranges. I don't know.
Go ahead, Jim.
Well, although the subdivisions may be unassumed by the municipality currently, there is occupancy in those homes in there that after a period of time, and that's where we start collecting. So we are getting that tax revenue coming in from those occupied homes. So, you know, we do have development charges pay for some of the capital pieces, but after that, it's the taxation that's keeping the operating going. So we are getting that support in my mind.
And actually,
Thanks,
we're getting a little bit more in general at the first bit before we assume the roads, because we're getting taxation from the occupied homes, plus we're charging for snowplow and some other things. So the first little while of taxation's actually, I won't say a bonus, but I think we get a little more out of it than we do down the road. Dave?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a larger discussion, but I think to kind of wrap around this whole thing is we've been always very, very hesitant to expand our staffing when we weren't growing. You know, we tended to try and find ways to get jobs done, but you know, from time to time, you do have to add to staff. I think the confusing part right now is that we're also in a very demanding time for extra resources when it comes to COVID. So that's challenging on staff. We're adding to staff to keep up with the growth. Something I will share with you that I haven't been able to get a handle on, but I think this reflects where is MPAC in you know, our catch up. And I had somebody that phoned me the other day, kind of concerned about they got a bill for over $3,000 from us for back taxes. That where in relation to a new build, the new build gave them occupancy in late 2020, about September, and they're just getting the bill now from MPAC catch up. So we're almost looking at a 16-month backlog in new assessment coming at us. Maybe Liam can comment on that, but that's just an observation I seen the other day. You know, we are behind a bit with revenues coming in related to growth, and I'm suggesting it's likely in excess of a year. But Liam, please tell us if we're wrong there in that assessment. With that said, I think coming out of COVID, I'm sure not saying that we're going to have, you know, staff sitting around, but I am saying it's going to be easier and I think we'll be at more capacity of where we should be, because I know even with adding staff right now, a lot of people are being challenged to keep up, and we're finding ways to share some loads when there is peak service requirements.
Yeah. Liam, go ahead.
Well, I'm going to answer that, but first I want to give John a heads up that I'm going to might defer to him on a question. So first, I'm going to mention, of what I understand, it's probably about a 12-month average, probably between occupancy and getting your supplemental bill, that for MPAC processing. So his comment was like late 2020 and then at end of 2021 get a supplemental bill. That's probably average. And MPAC has gotten better. A couple of years ago, they were like a couple of years behind. So, and if John is listening, if he could have any more current information on that.
Oh, I'm good. I thought that you were asking for me, and I'm thinking I don't know a thing.
Sorry,
Go ahead, John. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah. So impact was behind for about 7 months. So that impacted last year supplemental bills. So we are up to date from a municipal connected, whatever the invoices we are invoicing. So we are up to date in our system. So it is not the lag from our system, but it is from the impact. And I think they're a little bit behind, but they are gradually catching up.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, go ahead,
Just
Liam.
because we were talking about growth, if I might expand on that discussion.
Yep.
So I just pulled up the first page of attachment 1 here, where the growth is factored in. Earlier I said about
Just a second,
2021 being 190.
just a second. Dave had something. I think Jason had a question. So go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, could we come back to that tax discussion? Here's how the resident felt. I mean, you know, they're getting this bill in December. Ho ho, Merry Christmas. Like, you know, kind of a bad time. Is there a way, because I want to have this conversation so that council may get these calls too. Is there a way that we could take data from the building department that says, hey, these people now have a new house instead of a vacant piece of land, rather than hit them with a large bill in 12 months? Could we start a $500, $600, $700 a quarter billing to kind of reduce that hit when they come to getting the true up bill? You know, could we bill those 4 or 5 quarters over the last year and a bit in order to soften the burden when the true assessment comes in and the one big bill hits them at one time? Could we soften the blow somehow with interim bills?
Well, I saw John's back on camera, so we'll see what he has to say about this.
It depends upon the council decision whether we want to hold our revenue that low, because actually always whenever the residents are calling me, I always advise that if they are newly purchasing a house, I will advise that please keep some savings so that you could find the supplemental bill is coming and you will not be surprised. That is always the advice I am giving to the new residents. But it is council decision whether you want to defer the revenue to longer period than what is the normal. I will act according to council decision regarding it.
Okay. Liam?
I might just jump in there.
Sure.
My understanding is we can't issue a tax bill until MPAC tells there's assessment to bill for taxes. However, in practice, what we've been doing, as John commented on, as residents call in, we estimate that their bill is going to be like 3,000 or 4,000 when that assessment does come in, and we encourage them to pay us in advance. But I don't think we can require them to pay us in advance of that supplemental bill going out. Am I incorrect, John?
Yeah, it is correct. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, Liam's comment is correct. Yes.
Okay. 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 And Jason, you had a comment or question?
Yeah, no, I brought it up a meeting or two ago. It's kind of back to Brian's comments about how Jim said we're getting stretched with the trucks and stuff. I don't understand why overtime is such a bad word. I watched the trucks pick up. An hour a day extra would pick a lot of garbage up. And I just don't understand. I don't know if it's to Dave or Jim. We seem to be, overtime's a bad word. Like, you know, to pay an extra 5 hours a week for 5 hours of collection, that's a lot cheaper than adding another person. I don't know. Every time we bring up overtime, it seems to be a bad topic.
Okay. Okay. Any other questions or comments, or Barbara?
Thank you. A question about assessment and taxation and the delay. MPAC has sent out numerous updates that, you know, due to COVID, they did not send out assessed value. They are now up to date and have sent out all new, according to them, have sent out notices of assessment to those who have had a change in their assessed, or a new build or an addition or all of those things. One of someone I know who had whose son was building a house, and what he did was he set aside I don't know, maybe it was $200 a month in a separate account, knowing that he was going to get hit once MPAC got caught up. So he wasn't surprised by that bill. Anyone who is putting up on addition or changing their house or building a new house, and I'm glad to hear that John Curran is advising those residents to set some money aside because there is usually a year's lag. I think that's good advice, and I think people should realize that their assessed value is going to change and their taxes are going to change as a result. I don't believe from any sessions that I've taken that you can charge in advance, because we don't know what that rate is going to be. We can only guess.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think we can continue on, Liam.
Okay. So next is wastewater, which is a non-taxation department, is a rate supported. Nothing too unusual happening in here, just a increase in revenues, which is going into reserves for spending on the capital side of things.
Okay.
And I suppose the significant piece, as we've discussed in capital, is the sewage treatment plant upgrades, which is showing on in the capital side of this budget.
Okay. Doesn't look like there's any questions.
So I'll discuss water. And so in water, whoops, where we are. So we're anticipating a revenue increase for sale of meters of 20,000 and the expense decrease of 36,000 being less being available for reserves because the usage is dropping and the new rates coming in. And again, in the capital is where the big key component is in the construction of the water tower.
Okay.
So Jim wants to add anything or any questions for water, wastewater?
Not seeing any questions right now. Okay.
Okay, so I will move on. The next section on here is health services. That's the money we set aside for Markdale Hospital and the Mount Forest programs, and as well as the Erskine Center and the medical center. So again, the detail from this is in the special projects tab that we've discussed previously.
Barb had a question for that.
So looking at the summary, maybe it's more clear in the other schedules. There's nothing on the line. I'm assuming there's no change. That's what this schedule means. There's no change in the Erskine funding. I didn't find anywhere, and maybe I missed it, Liam, the Durham Hospital Foundation. We make an annual contribution to their capital campaigns. I think it was 1,800 or 2,000, 2,500 last year.
I think it was 1,500, and it would be in the 013530, the grants activity. I just hasn't been highlighted since it hasn't changed.
I think that was for doctor recruitment.
Last year it was 2,500. They had requested a special 3-year or 2-year split, and we fulfilled that, but it wasn't. I don't see a line for Durham Hospital Foundation. I see Markdale, I see Mount Forest, doctor recruitment, I see the Dundalk Medical Center, Erskine Center, but nothing for Durham Hospital Foundation. And that request comes annually.
But doesn't it, I think what
So
Liam was saying.
Pull up on his screen the detail for 3530. I believe there's 1,500 in there traditionally, but I believe Councilor Breen's also correct. It should have been 2,500, so we might be off by 1,000 there in the budget. So if Akash can check that.
Okay, so even though it just says Markdale, it includes other things.
The Markdale highlight is what the significant change in that activity. So the Markdale contribution expense has increased by $10,000. It was $20,000 a year, and now it's $30,000 a year for 2022 and 2023, based on the commitment the council made.
Thank you.
But I do think the budget is probably understated by $1,000 because I do recall there being a $2,500 commitment potentially. So we all have to look into that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Did you want to add anything, Cash?
Just to confirm what Liam said earlier, there is a line item for the Durham Community Health Foundation in the amount of $1,500 under 3530 7702. So there is a $1,500 line item towards Durham.
Okay, so we can adjust that then.
Yes, we'll adjust it by $1,000 before the next version, in the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing anything else here, so carry on.
So the next section is the cemetery. The cemetery requirement from taxation is going down by 6,337 due to the higher rates that we are now charging for the plots. And if there's any questions or comments from Jim on cemetery?
No, don't see anything.
So just because we're on cemetery, the fees and charges will have legislative fees and charges for care maintenance are going up January 1st. So council will be seeing that to the December 15th meeting. The amount that we charge and contribute to our care maintenance fund is legislatively changing January 1st, but doesn't change our taxation activities.
Okay.
So the next section is recreation, general and rural, which includes the town hall and rural parks. Nothing too significant happened there other than the transfers to reserves that was shown on the capital budget, and then the transfers to Fund 4 and 6. So Fund 4 is Dundalk Recreation, and Fund 6 is Dundalk Arena.
Okay.
So I will move down to those sections. So Dundalk Rec, nothing too significantly happening in there, just a decrease in the allocation of wages to rec admin and an increase in revenues for the rental of the Dale Memorial Park. And in the arena, the contribution from the Fund 1 is coming in. And insurance, $9,000 increase again to $36,000, 36% overall increase in the insurance. So that shows up here in recreation on their line. Other than that, there's no other significant variances in the recreation activities.
Okay. I see you're there, Kevin. Did you want to add anything?
No, just noting that the 35% increase in insurance works out to $10,000 on the rec department. Just for information, 3 bills now equals the total revenue for the arena. We pay $30,000 in insurance for the arena, $50,000 in hydro, and $15,000 in natural gas, and that equals our total revenue for the arena. So insurance is a big issue to us in the rec department.
Absolutely. Yeah. Any questions, comments? Brian.
Thank you, John. I guess I'm commenting from some discussion at the last recreation meeting, and Martin is the chair of the rec committee, so he may recall or correct me if I'm wrong. But it seemed to me, with the dramatic increase we've seen with the number of residents in the community, that there's going to be an increased demand, or is an increased demand, for programming and services by our recreation committee, and that's our recreation department, and that's right across all our facilities: campground, playgrounds, arena, skateboard, all the rest of it. And I'm wondering, is there? I see there is an increase of $7,000 for administration wages, but is there more? Is there an increase built into this budget for an increase in programming? I guess it's my question. I'm not seeing it, but maybe there is somewhere and I'm not seeing it.
Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
The total increase I put in wages was 7%. So if it comes within 7%, we're probably looking at this season hiring back the summer student to see if the summer student can help with the programming side. Beyond that, this isn't the year to add a new employee with, depending on what the cost of living comes in at, and everything, with a 35% increase in insurance and everything. It's just, I'm either going to go for a 3% increase, which is in here now, or we're looking at a 10% increase. So where are we making the cuts down the line here to keep the budget in line? So I'm hoping that we can proceed another year till we get some more tax dollars coming in to increase the recreation staffing.
Okay, Martin?
Yeah, thanks, John. Brian was exactly right with what he said. We had quite a long discussion. It was actually one of the longest committee meetings, but Ethan was part of it. And basically, this is going to be coming down the pipe in a couple of years, because Ethan needs quite a bit of help. If Ethan gets sick, this is one of the main things. If he got sick like he did on a Saturday, programs just got washed away, and it still took time to do the logistics to tell people that it was not going ahead. So this is something that is definitely going to be looked at in the near future, for sure. So there is definite need coming up, and just so that somebody's there, if there is sickness, somebody has to take over a program that is already working in the program, so they can take over seamlessly if something bad happens. So this will be a budget item for sure next year. So, but Brian was absolutely right in what he asked.
Okay, thank you. It's funny what one thing will trigger another. Thought that just came to mind that we may want to look at with the crossing guard deal. There's enough high school students now that are doing school online from home. And I wonder if there wouldn't be like a grade 12 or something that either it would help with community hours, or they would like the couple of hours or whatever the pay is for the day that, you know, if we had a few of those backed up, that might be another idea. So something, just a thought that came through this discussion, just keep in the back of your heads. Any other questions about the rec? Okay, not seeing any, so thank you, Kevin.
Next area is the library, which essentially is the addition of the digital services assistant.
Okay, do you want to add anything, Lucy?
I'm sure I'm gonna get asked anyway, so I'll explain what the automation line is. Automation is anything that's our online databases, our online catalog, our ebooks and audiobooks. So that's what the $4,000 increase is for.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Oh, looks like there are no questions. So thank you for your comments and let's keep going.
Next section is planning. So some additional revenues. The elimination of the official plan update, the official plan update that was in the 2021 budget is not repeating in 2022. And that's essentially the major things here.
Okay. And questions or comments? Clint, did you want to add anything?
Not really, no, unless there's any questions.
Great comment. Are there any questions? Barbara?
Thank you. This isn't not expecting an answer today, but I'm wondering if council will be getting an update on the status of the properties that have been sold, are being sold, what's left. I mean, we've got $5.5 million proposed. I'm thinking that's a topic for. It could be a topic for closed session or for the economic development officer. I'm just wondering if that's planned for in the next little while before we approve the budget so that we can best understand that number.
I think that's Terry or Dave for that one.
Okay, there's Terry.
I believe we're talking about planning, and the question that Councillor DeBreen has is on industrial land.
Yeah, the sale of lot.
Sure, you're wondering where that number came from?
Well, that and my question, Terry, was, will we be getting an update on the status of all of those lands that are being sold, have been sold, what this number entails? I'm guessing this is the major 90-acre thing, but is that coming to council before we approve the budget in its final form?
I can give you a really quick update right now if you'd like. I will be putting a year-end report into council with all the details, but just very quickly, what's included in that number is the 90-acre parcel to Plateau from phase 2. It's the green lid, 27 acres, should that be approved later on in this meeting. It's a 12-acre project that I'm working on as well. It's the old green lid lot. I have a new project that I'm working on for that property. And then there is a 7-acre parcel that is a potential for a 2022 closing as well. So there are 4 closings included in that 2022 number. But there'll be a full update coming not until January. But does that answer your question for now, or?
I think so, as long as there's something coming, because there's a lot of balls in the air, I'm sure, and there were properties sold and we're supposed to be closed, and I just wondered if that was part of that number, but you've explained what that number represents. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And there is one more closing coming in a couple of weeks that Lindsay's working on right now. Casa Terre is closing next on the 15th, I think. So there'll be one more closing in 2021, and I believe 4 for that potentially closing in 2022.
Great.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, any other questions or comments on the planning one? Okay, we can carry on.
So the next section was industrial land, which I think we just basically discussed. I will note that for some reason 01-5021 got added here twice for some reason. It's correctly under industrial land, but it's duplicated under economic development. It's a net zero impact, but it is presented twice, unfortunately. So after industrial land comes agriculture. So we had budgeted for somebody to request a new trial drain loan and someone to repay a trial drain loan, because that was our experience over the last previous years. So in 2022, we're not budgeting for a new loan or a repayment of a loan. Again, it's a net zero impact because it's in and out between the landowner and us and the province. So, and if there is one, again, it will be net zero impact.
Okay.
And go on to economic development.
Question,
Brian
John?
has a question. Yep, go ahead, Brian.
Thanks, John. Liam, what percent is that loan charged out at?
6%.
So it's no wonder that we're not getting a lot of uptake, right? Because you can go to the bank and borrow the money a lot cheaper than that for a drainage loan. Okay, thank you.
Correct. And just remind everybody, the 6% is a legislated rate, so it hasn't changed. I don't think it's ever changed as long as this program has been active, to my knowledge.
Time may fix that, but at this current point in time, 6% is too high. But yeah, I mean, I remember asking the premier at some conference somewhere at some time, and she said she'd look into it, and indeed they did get back to me, but they did not indicate they were prepared to change it. So, and they haven't. So that's good. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. All right, we can carry on.
Okay, so for economic development, the increases there are the wages for the FTE being in 2021 was only for a partial year, and in 2022 for the full year. And then as discussed in special projects, contributions to the programs there.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Not seeing any. Before we move on, we've been at it about an hour and a half plus. Is anyone in for about a 5 or so minute break? Well, I am, so I'm going to call a recess.
Good call. Good
yeah.
call.
Let's say 10:45 we're back. That gives us better than the 5 minutes. Okay? Thanks, everyone. Well, I got 10:45 and there's 3 of us I can see. 4. Yay.
John, before we move on to the next section, I have a couple of things I'd like to say.
Sure, go ahead.
Well, Whitford is here.
Yeah. Are you there, Michael? Just make sure. Yep, there he is. Okay. Yep, all the council's back, and we've got Dave and Liam, and then whoever else is listening in. So go ahead, Jim.
Okay, if you could go to page 11 on attachment 1.
Okay.
And perhaps Dave can fill in anything that I miss out on. There was a concern by Dave that the police service was not, the police were not doing a good job in responding. 2 meetings were held with the detachment commander and John and myself. And Dave, perhaps you can explain exactly what it was you were having trouble with.
I'll get off mute here. So there's definitely been an increase in demand for service in Southgate, likely greater than what is in the rest of Grey and Bruce County. I think we calculated the numbers being, there's been a 40% increase in COVID since COVID outbreak. So calls for service have increased, the demand has increased. We're hearing about police presence isn't as high as it used to be. So the detachment commander is working with the head office to calculate a number for increased service so that, now's the time to consider it during budget. But I think just our discussion with the OPP has increased the presence of officers in the area. We went through a ride check on Saturday night that was down, not exactly in Southgate, but in our area, which is good. So anyway, and there is attention being brought to some of the concerns we've raised in the community, but you can expect possibly a quote from the OPP on what increased level of services may look like. And that would be for all of Southgate or just an increased level of service in Dundalk to do that street patrol, bicycle patrol, walk patrol in the parks that seems to be just lacking a bit right now.
Okay, with Dave's concern being addressed by the detachment commander, she has been in contact with the Municipal Policing Bureau. Dave gave the commander a head count for the township of Southgate. If that head count fits the Municipal Bureau for policing, there could quite well be, within the next few months, an increase of 1 FTE for Southgate. So that would be a budget increase of $100,000 plus. So Liam, maybe you can keep that in mind, because if it's approved, that police budget is going up considerably.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And that's one of those ones that the requests for more police presence that we're getting is one of the frequent calls around. Dave wanted to answer, and then Barb.
So what we did for the detachment commander was we did some assessment on numbers of households. And what we come down to is that there's really no change in the number of households. that we recommend they just go ahead and use the same 2022 household numbers that they used in our present budget for an increased level of service that can be brought forward for council consideration.
Okay, Barb?
Thank you. Through you. So Dave, you mentioned something about an increased presence at a ride program. I don't think the ride program is addressing the concerns of the residents for the lack of presence in to address the property crime or the parks. I guess my question with regard to a potential for a full-time FTE for Southgate, or whether that's Dundalk or not, does that mean they're going to be stationed in Dundalk so that they're not 45 minutes to an hour if they can make it? When a 911 call comes in that a crime is in progress and they're not even anywhere near Southgate?
I can answer that, and Jim, correct me if I'm wrong with this, but when they say one FTE is for the area, that means that it averages out to that. So you could have 4 cars in Southgate for an hour, and then nobody for the next 3. Like it's an average.
Or 23.
Well, no, it's supposed to average out to the that right full-time person's time would be in all of Southgate somewhere. And where the ride program ties into it is one of the complaints that we get is that there isn't the visibility of police. And so just by being out and around, that is a help. The other thing I've noticed is they've gone back to cruisers at the school when they're getting out in that. And they had gone away from that for a little while. And I guess with COVID and all the things, and I've noticed it's pretty consistent that they're back there. So that's a nice visibility thing for them too. The other thing I was told, and this was just over the last few days, was that a lot of times in the evenings, there's a cruiser parked in the newer subdivisions. They'll park in a spot in front of a house that hasn't been occupied yet or something and just sit there for a little while, whether they're doing their paperwork or whatever it is, but they're visible in the new subdivisions as well as some of the older ones. But when they're doing things, they're parking there now. So that's an increase in visibility. Other places that I've seen them with that is at the Hopeville Park. I've seen them park there, and a couple other places around. So that's been an increase in things. Did you want to add anything to that, Jim or Dave?
You covered that rather well, John.
Okay, thank you. Any other, Dave, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd agree. And my point with the ride program is just visibility. And I think visibility means something to the public.
Yeah. Yeah, and as other places like Shelburne and Orangeville have found out, you can have the OPP there and they do a good job, but their own police forces, they had the cars limited to the borders for the most part. So there was always there, and with the OPP, they have to the big area that they look after. So it's what it is. Any other questions on what Jim brought up? Okay, not seeing any. Thanks, Jim, for bringing that up. I'll turn it back to you, Liam, and we are back down here again. Okay. So go ahead, Liam.
So,
yep.
So before the break, we basically went through all the detail. So I'm just jumped back to the summary page just to remind council the total right now, the 2022 budget anticipates raising $8,661,740, which is a $671,000 increase. of which is partially funded by offset by growth of 195,924. So the 475,515 is what actually has, why the tax rate has to change to raise that remaining piece. So I'll just, and then, so the main causes of the increases are as discussed in the special projects and capital program, which for the 220 and 68,000, and then the $381,000 variance on the regular operating. Most of that is due to the addition of staff. So being the digital services assistant, the bylaw enforcement officer, the roads operator laborer, and then there's the admin and finance bylaw assistants, which has been pre-approved. And then as well as there's the 0.35 FTE for the CAO overlap, which I'm recommending be funded from the tax stabilization reserve. So it'd be clear, this version has that amount funded by the tax stabilization reserve.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments? Okay, go ahead, Liam.
No, I just wanted to open it up basically for discussion as to those are the major pressures. Well, I guess additional pressures being the cost of living. I apologize. With the current budget, anticipate reflects a 3% approval as well as the merit increases, which the cost of living approval is the next budget on the agenda, next report on the agenda. And yeah, so I think we just need to discuss what council feels of right now is at 4.8, where they would like it to see it, and how do they want to get there.
Okay, thank you. Michael. Oh, you're muted.
I would like to see it go lower, that's for sure. And I'm just kind of wondering at what point do we want to open up things for discussion? We were going through all the departments. I know we haven't really talked about if we can cut one truck here, if we can, you know, the library, if we can move some money from there. You know, do we really need another person there right now? Yeah, I just don't know at what point and what type of motion you want to start cutting some stuff, but I definitely think the number is too high right now.
Okay, well, I think we're at that point now where we can start making the suggestions and see where we want to land with this. So if you have anything or anyone else what they'd like to suggest, Brian?
Just a question before we go there. Liam, I'd trust your math way ahead of mine. So my question is, what does 1% in this proposed budget that you've got here, this draft budget so far at least, what does 1% represent in terms of dollars and cents, roughly?
So at approximately
Well, there it is.
134,200.
Thank you. Okay. That's that was just yeah, no, I needed to know that. Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Anyone have any thoughts or any parts we want to look at? Okay, Brian.
Just a general comment. I can appreciate what you know, some councillors are thinking that 4.8 is too high, but if you look at where we're going in terms of growth, demand on services, inflation, and all the rest of it, 4.8 is not exorbitant, I don't think, from that perspective. From the perspective of an increase to your individual tax bill, yeah, it might come a little jarring, that's for sure. Particularly if we go to the point where we're going to add 100K on for policing, that changes the game as well. I mean, that's almost another full percentage point, or at least 0.75% anyway. So I guess what I would ask is, where does staff see some significant changes or significant savings to be had. I guess I'd start there rather than councilors trying to sort through the budget and nickel and dime it. I mean, staff should have some ideas as to what we could do to soften the blow, so to speak.
Okay. I'm not seeing large amounts of jumping up there. So let's get Barb's question in as well, and then see where we can go from here.
Right. So yeah, to Brian's point, as we grow and we require more police presence and we require more police costs, when is there enough growth? And I mean, there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. But my question actually was about the reserve schedule. Will we be discussing that separately, Liam? Because I can hold my question, or we can jump to it now.
We can jump to it now if you have a question regarding specific.
Yeah.
Line.
So I had a question about the Southgate Solar Fund versus the Royalties Eco Park Fund, and I know that we have in there $15,000 being contributed. My recollection is to the Community Foundation Grey Bruce. The community fund, Southgate Community Fund, that is managed through Community Foundation Grey Bruce. But the solar fund shows a transfer of $35,000. So what does that extra $20,000 represent?
What line
I
is
know
that?
It is 0900223001 on page 3 of 6, attachment 4.
Okay.
And in 2022, we anticipate the $75,000 contribution, and then there's a transfer to $35,000, which $15,000 should be to the community fund, that Southgate Foundation Fund. I can't remember the name of it. Sorry, Dave. It got changed a couple of times. It's on page 3 of 6. And the last 4 digits is 3001. The Southgate Community Vibrancy Fund Solar. Oh, where'd it go? You had it.
So I was going to pull up the detail because obviously I didn't have a note on that cell. I know it's the donation revenue, and then there's 10 and 15, and I have to pull up that detail to remind myself what that is.
Yeah, because you have 35,000 for total. Yeah, thank you.
I believe the 25,000 is the senior and youth program, 25,000, of which 15,000 is coming from Dundalk Royalty Reserve, and then 10 from the Solar Reserve. And then over in administration, as I believe 25,000. I'm hoping I'm going to find. Or sorry, finance. Yeah, to fund the donations. I believe.
Okay.
And where is that cell?
So my understanding was the solar fund and the Eco Park Fund were contributing equally up to, and I think it was 30,000 to the community fund, so $15,000 each to that, the fund that we created in collaboration with community, that is being managed by Community Foundation Grey Bruce. I don't, I'm not following your schedule. It's on the screen.
Yeah, so I'm just going into detail. So the donation account has a budget of 55,000, of which 30,000 is the second year of the $30,000 contribution to Southgate's Community Foundation, which is funded from reserves for 5 years. And then the 25,000 is for, there's a note. I'd have to go into the detail to find out.
Well, maybe that's something that you can bring back. I don't want to hold up the discussion.
So in summary, it's funding the donations, the contribution to the community foundation, and the seniors and youth community health services programming. That's split between those two reserves that you're, if I can get back to that page.
Oh, the Southeast Grey Community
Between,
Health, oh, the Erskine Center.
The Southeast Grey Seniors and Youth Programming, which isn't the Erskine Center specifically.
Okay, and that was 25,000 annually.
Yes, that's split between those two reserves.
Okay, but that means that leaves 10. The schedule, the reserves that you gave us had 35,000, but that shows only then $10,000 remaining. Maybe you can educate me after. Maybe I'm confusing it, because there's supposed to be equal amounts from solar and the eco part going to Community Foundation Grey Bruce.
I can create a schedule that shows that in one place to make it clearer for you after the meeting.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, any suggestions on any cuts or the 4.8% or any of that?
If I may just make one comment first.
Absolutely.
So just want to make sure council is aware of the distribution of the 4.8%. So of that, operating is only 2.7%, special projects is 0.5%, and capital is 1.6%. So even with loading the additional FTEs and the cost of living increase, operating is only going up by 2.7% is an impact.
Yeah. The other thing I like to kind of, as I go through it, try to keep in mind is controllables and out of our realm of jurisdiction in a way. Things like increases in OPP, insurance, different other pressures that we get, cuts from funding from province or federal, just different things like that. And then see, I look then at what the actual controllable ones in a budget, what the actual increase is. And I find that more kind of puts it in better perspective for me. And not to say there are things we can't do about things like, you know, policing costs overall, but they're more of a non-budgetary long-term thing, a lot of them having to do with information and education of the public and safety issues. So, you know, that's just the way I do it. You know, I hate seeing something like 4.8%. But when people are talking about, you know, trying to build a house and the price of their materials went up $50,000 in a year, and when you look at the services that we're having to deliver and the overall cost, what people pay in order to get what they get from the township, I think it shows that your municipal taxes, you get a lot more direct, that you can see benefit out of it than we do for what we pay on the other taxes. So to me, the municipal taxes are the ones that people see the benefit from right away. Yes, I'd like to see lower than the 4.8, but I don't want to see us go backwards either. And we've got to take care of what we have and carry on from there. So that's my take on it. Any questions or suggestions from anybody else? Martin?
Yeah, just a comment. When we had the very low, increase last year, we kind of knew in the back of the heads we have to move forward. So if we can trim it to 3.8 or 3, you know, it is 134,000 we're looking at per percentage point. Maybe maybe there are a few items like we were talking about getting laptops next year, little things like that. And yeah, it is nickel and diming, but hate to say it, 90,000 for pickup trucks. But you know, we always go through this. You know, we should be adding another % for the roads, maintaining it. I think Liam had a comment where we're still falling behind there. So I've been looking at it. There's not too much we can strip off, but if we can get it to, you know, take that 134, 1.5% off, but I can't see us going below 3. As you said, John, with all the costs and what people expect now, and I'm a taxpayer, I'd like to see it low, but I like the services just as much as anybody else. So maybe 3 is the starting point.
Okay.
You know.
Thanks, Martin. Jim, you have something.
I just want to bring to council's attention that Phil and I looked through the AMO LAS canoe procurement for fleet vehicles out of enterprise rentals and had discussions with them. And it seemed very intriguing that you turn your fleet over when it's, and this is a small to medium-sized fleet, so 1 tons and down pickups, that you get into a program with them and you are renewing vehicles probably every 3 years or so, and not having that big outlay of the initial cost for them, and cycle them through when they're a good value for their return. And we went through it for quite a few steps. We sent them quite a bit of information. It fell short though, because we're only got about 15 or 16 vehicles in that category, and they need a minimum threshold of 20 to make it work for them. So we are going to be discussing, I know Town of Blue Mountains and Meaford are participating in these programs, and we are going to reach out with Enterprise to see if Grey County, maybe for next year, there's an opportunity to get into a procurement with them on those type of vehicles.
That's great, Jim. And I think that idea, you've hit the nail on the head with it, is that I think for these larger purchases, if there's any way that we could join with some of the other municipalities around for procurement and for some of these plans, I think we could save quite a bit. I know in the fire departments, there's in the past, there's been a lot of the smaller departments that would join in with the larger ones. You know, like, I don't know what Toronto's doing now, but they used to do about 15 trucks a year, fire trucks. And they often get smaller departments that only needed, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 a year, and add those in. And you know, even saving a couple of % on a fire truck that's running 500,000, it adds up. And if you can jump in and get that. So I think this joint procurement idea is worth pursuing, but as we learned with having a joint building department, we got to go slow and steady and work it out to make sure things are going. Any ideas, anyone? Jason?
Yeah, Martin kind of stole where I was thinking. I was kind of thinking around that 3%. I know we knocked it back last year quite a bit. We have all this talk about the services, where we can't cut services, but as a rural resident, I don't see where I don't know if anybody can answer this, where my services have increased. The budget goes up every year, the taxes go up every year. My services haven't increased. They've held their own. We have good service. The roads get plowed, the garbage get picked up, but they haven't increased. Our budget is increasing because of the growth, which Barb said is my opinion, and I don't know. I've said it before, and I know it's going to get sickening, but maybe we got to pull back a bit. I hear it from residents like Dundalk. When does it end? We just keep, and I understand development's supposed to pay for itself and the tax increase comes, but you know, I don't know. There was a couple of things. Anyway, that's just opinion. There was a couple of things in the budget, in the rec department, the ball diamonds and that. 250,000? I think it was. Like, I don't see the ball diamonds used that often. We have a perfectly good one sitting in Hopeville that nobody is ever at. If our residents can't, and we have good ones in Dundalk, like something like that, and then these placeholders we put out for, this new community building, which would be great, but I don't know. Nobody uses our buildings now. If people are going to tell me they do, they don't. The McIntyre building is empty 80% of the time. The arena is not. So some of these placeholders, if we're reserving money for stuff like that, I think that's got to be looked at, because I don't know. It's just, as I said, the services aren't increasing. I've been asked that. Well, where's my service increase? It hasn't. And the number one thing I hear is these roads, and I drive them every day. And something's going to happen in the next. We're talking about spending big money. Well, something's going to happen on these roads, or we're going to be in big trouble. But anyway, that's just a couple little things. I would like to try to keep it around 3. I think that would be kind of a fair number for everybody. Just an opinion.
Okay, thanks, Jason. And I think, if you want to look at some of this stuff, and that's just the way I look at it with some of it, how much is not increasing services, but how much has fuel gone up, or the price of vehicles, or whatever, to plow the roads, and that type of stuff, and even maintenance of the roads. We used to figure, at least I did years ago, that once you made it to Christmas or New Year's Day, lakes or ponds or anything, guaranteed they were safe to be out on, and everything was frozen up for a couple of months and would stay fairly stable. And now with the temperatures up and down and everything, there's places around you can't go on the ice all winter, and that's just playing havoc with the roads too. So I think we're seeing a ton more damage, and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's the way I read it with the roads too, all these temperature changes, and stuff. So yeah, there are increased services for everybody in some things, but for the most part, I think like a budget like this has got a lot to do with just trying to keep up with the inflation that we're caught up in. And good points about the ball diamonds. The ones we have, maybe we need to chase people around to the ones like we have, like you say, make Hopeville used more and things like that. Yep, go ahead, Jason.
Well, that was just an example. I just mean, I look at it in a different way. Everyone knows I'm a conservative, I guess we'll put it that way. But okay, even this town hall thing we got coming up, we're going to drop a bunch of money on it. Right from Dundalk to the very last property in Mount Forest, we have how many hundreds of Mennonite families that pay a lot of taxes, and none of this tax revenue goes to all of those kids. Yeah, the school maybe, I'm not sure how the school works, but we don't have programs for them because we don't need it. But we seem to have to offer every little program here and there for 6 kids here, 10 kids there, 10 kids there. It's great. But if the money's not there, people are sick of paying. And I just always use that example of all the Mennonite families. They don't ask for nothing, but they pay their taxes. And it's just an example I'm giving. So I'd like to see it get down around that 3%. And I think it's time we, you know, people expect too much. Like we can only do so much, and everybody can only pay so much, is my opinion.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. No, it's what we work on. Is all these opinions are really good. Barbara.
Through you and listening to Jason's point, the Mennonite families, they pay their taxes and they pay the school tax, but then a lot of them, not all of them, some of them are in our school system, then pay for their own school and their own community halls. And you're right, they're not using the arena, or not all of them. There are some that are using our services in Dundalk. The concern with John, you make a point about, you know, the freeze and thaws, There's days where on a thaw, trying to get to the other end of my road, it's, you know, we're sinking in to the sand and gravel, which then causes more ruts, which then requires more maintenance because they're not freezing up for the winter. So we need to invest more in our roads. I'd like to understand how Aurelia and Barrie can keep their tax increase under 3%. It was just announced on the news last night, without cutting their services. That'd be an interesting, did I lose? I still have you on volume, but I might have lost. No, you're back. Sorry. Internet is wonderful.
Yep.
And then I'd like to understand what the impact of the county, if they pass the 3.75% increase, what does that do to the 4.8? I can see trying to get it down, but I don't see 3% being realistic when we're supposed to be putting a minimum of 1% into a roads asset management, trying to recover some of that deficit. We're falling behind. We're not even stable today. Do I want a 4.8%? No. And I agree, like where does it end? But the cost of sand, gravel, fuel, everything, materials has gone up. I mean, we can't even get a realistic bid on a construction project for our replacement council chambers. Well, we did. We got a quote, but gosh knows if they'll make any money on it by the time they factor in all the additional costs. So I'm not happy with 4.8. I don't see 3% being realistic, but other cities are doing it. Maybe they have, I don't know where they're getting their money from, because we're getting the growth. I'm sure they're growing too.
Well, I just to kind of put a different perspective on that. And thank you, Barb, for bringing that up. I remember when in Toronto, when Rob Ford was mayor, and he wanted the 5% cut on all the budgets, and it didn't reduce services. But by not reducing services, they cut 100 firefighters' jobs and said the services were still being covered by other people. So when they say they don't cut services, it to me, that doesn't mean a lot. It's the level of service and it's how their definitions of it. So as we've heard on a lot of different things, you're right. The devil's in the details on how they can keep it down. Are they artificially doing it by using all their reserves? Or are they not cutting services, but like they still have police services, but they're not there as much? You know, one car on the road at night instead of all of them, and like it's true. You have to really look at the devil's in the details. The other portion of it is that type of stuff doesn't take into account how well they managed budgets and money in the past. And that's the other thing we saw during the years in Toronto with the zeros and the trying for the minuses, was the departments that handled their budgets very well and very close without anything extravagant were punished by not having the increases. And the departments that had a lot of padding in there could have the decrease and not even notice it. So it's a whole thing of you got to find the line. For me, I think that there's not a lot of extravagance in our yearly budgets, and I agree with Jason on it. If people can't just get what they expect. They've got to be, we've got to be realistic about it. And if it means cutting some of the services, but that's got to be upfront. That's what we're doing, is we're cutting, and people have to realize that. Brian, you had.
Sorry, I had one follow-up.
Okay, and then Brian.
To your point, John, your point about not increasing services or not cutting services, but your point about cutting jobs. They didn't actually cut the jobs; they just never replaced them through natural attrition, or but that depletes the ability for call out. I still have a concern that we're not addressing our asset deficit, and if we cut services, but the cost keeps going up. How do we can't really explain that. You're right, the devil's in the details. We haven't even agreed on, is the COLA at 3%? Is that where we're landing? Because I think we haven't heard any discussion about it. I think that's a reasonable number, but we have everything else to consider. Everybody knows that it's costing us more at the gas pump, and that relates back to everything else, the delivery of service.
Yep.
As well.
Yep. Brian.
Thanks, John. Yeah, I mean, a lot of tough questions and a lot of good discussion. And I'm glad to hear that John is not prepared to go down the road of Rob Ford. I was worried about him for a second there when he mentioned that name. So I'm happy for that. That said, I'm wondering, Liam, if you could tell us what is the total tax bill with this proposed budget per 100K of assessment? Or maybe, well, I don't know whether you know that off the top of your head or not, but I'm sure you can calculate it. The other piece I'd like to know, and I've done a few budgeting exercises with the late and great Norm Jack, and one question that Norm always asked, and it was easy to put things in perspective, was how much does this budget increase somebody's tax bill in dollars and cents? Because we're talking here of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Those numbers are big, and sometimes they're hard to put them in relative context. But if you know how much impact is this budget going to have on somebody's tax bill, it's a lot easier to understand. At least I always found that when Norm asked the question. So I guess that's the question I'm asking of Liam, is how much per 100,000 assessment is this budget going to impact my tax bill?
Yeah,
please.
Thanks, Brian. I'd forgotten about Norm with that, because it always came down to that with him.
Always.
Go ahead, Go ahead, Liam.
So I've jumped to that section of my analysis. I believe it's correct. So I'm going to call these ballpark numbers because I need to verify to make sure all the formulas were updated. So per $100,000 of assessment is about $52. So on the average residential assessment of 300,000, so that'd be $155 on that house.
And that's what the increase is, or is that what the total tax burden is with this budget?
That's the increase tax burden.
Okay, so if
So-
your house is assessed at $300,000, your taxes would go up $152 with this budget. Did I get that right? Or
Yes.
ballpark.
Yes.
Yeah, not cowboy math.
Ballpark.
Right. Well,
Okay.
what they used to call cigarette box math.
Yeah.
I get it. So that said, for an extra $155 a year, you're going to continue to get the services that you currently get, plus maybe some more. In my mind, that's not astronomical, given the increases in dollars and cents to a lot of things that we all purchase day to day, week to week, year to year. If you look at, I forget who it was now, was talking about what the increase is to build a house. You ask anybody that's building a house last year and this year, $155, I don't know, that buys you a small pile of 2x4s. I think it puts it into a little better perspective. Can we do better? Probably, but I don't think that's it's unreasonable given the rate of increase of a lot of things in our communities. Thank you. Thanks, Liam.
Yeah, especially our costs. Barb.
I think to remind though, it's $52 per 100,000, and at the rate houses are selling in just Dundalk alone and other properties that have sold recently, it's significantly more than $300,000 lately.
Yep.
Well, if I could, Mr. Mayor, fair point. But I guess if you're living in a house that's valued at $1 million, I'm wondering what your mortgage is. And again, context, perspective, what are your taxes related to your budget, or to your mortgage rather?
Yeah. Liam.
Just want to clarify that the reason I have this analysis at $300,000 because that is the average residential assessment of Southgate. Yes, the new houses are being built and being sold for $1 million, but $300,000 is the average house at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay,
and
thanks
that's,
for clarifying that, Liam.
Yeah, and the other thing that I think my experience and probably a lot of others, the assessed value and what you can sell a house for are two totally different numbers. I've never understood the how that works out, but sometimes the assessed value is way higher, and I wished I could have got that for a house, and then other times it's lower. So yeah, Michael.
Yeah, just going back to what I was talking about before, like I remember when we had our capital, and Bev was saying that he didn't think there was enough work for a new full-time bylaw, full-time, that part-time then, and maybe you could go plow snow. You know, now the time to give an extra service to the library, to a digital person in there? Like, do we need that service? Like, you know, there's $100,000 right there between two of them. Like, haven't we just paid all those guys to get their bylaw tickets? And now we're going to get rid of them out of bylaw and hire another bylaw person to take over bylaw? What's going to happen to all the building officials that were already just trained and all that? Like, we just threw money away? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think having the building inspectors qualified like that, if we do have a new bylaw person, you've got backup. So, but yeah, and they're so busy, it's now they can't do it. But hi, Bev, did you want to comment?
Yes, I just wanted to point out that, as you were saying, one bylaw officer is not going to be able to do this job completely on busy time, so there will be backup by the department. We have not spent that much money on education on bylaw. I have two, myself and one other officer, that has taken part one of bylaw. There are 3 parts. So we have not spent that great of money on education on bylaw at this time. If we had a dedicated bylaw officer, they would be the ones that I would definitely push through to get all three parts. So just wanted to voice that.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so where do we go? I think we're at that point now. Brian?
Well, I guess from the discussion, I think there is an appetite to have staff look at the budgets and see if they couldn't come back with some suggestions. So that's what I would suggest is ask staff to come back with some proposed or possible cuts to lower that tax rate increase. And, you know, then we can have a little more fulsome discussion rather than going all over the place with all these sheets of paper and numbers. You know, what can you live without? And tell us, and then we'll decide whether we're going to do that or not.
Yep, and I think there's time too, by doing that, you know, council can kick in things that we've seen, like Michael suggested, or things like that. Jason.
Following on Brian's point there, like I was wondering if we could say to each department, hey, can we, you talked about Rob Ford, 5%. Could we find 1%, 1.5%? Just, you know, each department, that might make enough of a difference. You know, when we talk, I know it's big numbers, but 1.5%, maybe we have a goal to shoot for. Just a thought.
Yep. I think a goal to shoot for is a good idea. But it does come down to department by department, and we have to figure out what the goal would be overall. So, yeah. Any other comments? Barbara? Oh, I thought you were doing a mark.
No, I was trying, but it wouldn't unmute for some reason.
I thought you were trying to do a Martin impression. That's all.
No, I was desperately trying to push the button. So, you know, and yeah, if we say, can every department find 1%? The bulk of the department is, you know, roads, and you know, that's where significant savings is going to be. But that's where we're supposed to be putting 1% into our roads for improvement to bring us back up to not even par. I think, in fairness to Liam, we need to come up with a target. Can you get it down to 4%? Can you get it down to 3.8? You know, we need to give staff, you know, a bottom line that we're, you know, we'd like you to try to find 1% overall or 2% overall. I don't know what that number is, what the flavor council or what council is leaning to. But I don't think it's fair to say to staff, go away and see where you can find some savings. And then they come back and, well, that's just not low enough yet. We need to agree on a target, even a range. Can you get it between 3.5 and 4?
Okay, yeah. Any other comments? Oh, Lindsay.
I don't want to rush it, but I do have an amendment. I can share my screen and then we can discuss further if that's how we want to do it.
Okay.
Do we also need a motion to go past noon? I don't know how much more discussion because we have more staff reports.
Yeah.
So I would move that.
Okay, who'd like to second? Martin? Any discussion on going past noon, except for that we don't want to, but. Okay, is anyone opposed to going past noon? Okay, that's carried. So then back to you, Lindsay.
So I have an amendment on the screen there. I'm sure everyone can see it.
Yep.
And this was just what I wrote based on based on the conversation, so it can change, but that's what I have.
Okay.
I'm going to put something out there, Mayor Woodbury, as a starting point, and you know, if council votes against it, that we aim for 3.5% to 4%. Give them a range to work on.
Yep.
As opposed to a hard stop 3 point whatever.
All right, Martin, are you seconding that?
Well, I just comment before. I think I will. We've been talking the last couple of minutes about that levy that was supposed to be brought up, where we put another 1%, especially for roads. That would make this 5.8% if we did that. So I'm thinking 3.5, 3.8, just like little things, like 10,000 here, 5,000 there. If it comes to another 134 to 10, taxpayers expect us to talk about it and to try and bring it down. I was wrong, I think, after listening and looking through some of the things, that 3% probably is not reasonable. Well, reasonable, but not realistic. So I would tend to move that 3.8, 3.5 as a benchmark. We have to get trying some things, but yeah, so I'm okay with it.
Okay. So we do have that motion, the amendment, moved and seconded on the floor. Any discussion on that? Brian.
Thank you, John. Excuse me. I do believe we have a standing, I don't know whether it's a policy or what the heck it is now, but or what to call it, but I believe we have something that says that we will strive to come in with a budget increase that aligns with inflation. Well, inflation is 4.7%. So to say that we're going to bring in a budget at 3.5%, we're going backwards. We're not even holding our own to pay for the services that we've got now. I just don't, sure, we can do it, but in 5 years, you're going to have, or less, you're going to have roads falling apart, and you're going to have ratepayers screaming at you that what is going on with these roads? And I've already heard that once or twice today. What is going on with the roads, as an example?
Mm-hmm.
Why is the arena shut down? Because something happened and we didn't maintain it 5 years ago. Why is nothing being done with whatever? At some point, council has to suck it up and say, look, we got to keep up with what this is costing us to run this township. And if you're not willing to pay the bill, then things are going to start falling apart. And yeah, I've had those conversations with the ratepayers too, Jason, that people are not happy with the amount of taxes they're paying. But what the hell are they happy with? I don't know. I get angry phone calls because the building inspector isn't here within 30 minutes of me calling them, as an example. And, you know, if we're going to provide those level of services, we got to pay for them. Or, well, yeah, the residents. And I just don't think it is responsible budgeting to bring in a budget that is less, at least, to the inflation rate. Because otherwise, like I said, we're going backwards and you're just mortgaging your future. So I won't support the amendment, but there it is. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Brian. Any other, well, Barbara and then Jason.
Just to respond, and Brian is right. I mean, the old community action plan that was put in place by a previous term of council, where they did hold to at or less than cost of living, really found other terms of council in a hard pressed state, because the deficit on our asset management continued to decline. So while it was a great motherhood statement in its day, we no longer have that statement, although we do try to hold our taxes to, you know, try to deliver the services while maintaining our roads, and we're not doing a good job in that regard. I'm just not certain that now is the time to throw out a 4.8 or 5% increase to get the job done. People are struggling, and I get it. I don't know what the magic answer is, and I appreciate Deputy Mayor Milne's not going to support the amendment, but I put it out on the table for discussion, and we'll see where it goes, and then come back with another number.
Okay, thank you. Jason?
Well, I understand Brian's point about inflation, but as I said before, we got this town hall thing coming up. There's a 1% if it equals what we figured out before. There's 1% there. I think the main problem is we need a road. We don't need a nicer ball diamond. We don't need I don't know. There's just the social services, I think, are what kills people. As I said before, I'm here to represent the taxpayer, but taxpayers got to realize too that not everything can be done for them. There's only so much money. And I understand Brian's inflation point, and I don't want to go backwards either, but the road thing to me is a big thing, and I don't know. So we're gonna come up in the meeting here in a little while, and then people will think I'm attacking staff to give them a 5% raise, but we're telling the township, the constituents of the township, hey, we need more money for you. And as I said before, I don't see our services increasing. And that's why I would like to keep it lower. I'm not saying 0. I'm saying 3, 3.5, something like that. But I understand your point about the inflation. But it all comes down to somebody has to pay for it, and I think sometimes we don't realize that.
Yep. Thanks, Jason. When we mentioned something like the town hall, if maintenance on it had been funded to the level it needed 15 years ago, it wouldn't be in the shape it's in now, and us with the issue that we've had for the last 6 years with it. So it's kind of a thing too that you have to balance out with what is the real cost of cutting something. Is it going to cost us 3 times more 2 years down the road, or are you delaying a bigger bill? Or it's like Jim with the roads, with the patching and getting more years out of it before we have to spend the money is a good idea, but you can only patch so far, and then more. Brian, go ahead.
Thanks, John. The comment about we need the roads, but we don't need the town hall or something of that nature. Social services kills us. The things like roads and water pipes, sewage pipes, street lights, that kind of thing, that makes a township. But what makes a community? It's ball diamonds, it's town halls, it's arenas, it's things like that that give community something. It's ours. It's a value that we can say is ours. And if you don't have a community, then you might as well not have a township. I'm doing a poor job of describing it, but it's the intangible things that people identify with that says this is home. And I don't disagree. It's got to be paid for. There's no doubt about it. But I think if you start chopping back on things like that to give people a sense of community, then you're going to have to start paying a lot more for things like policing and things like that, or on legal fees. It's a tough thing because it's not an easy thing to convey in terms of what people value. I don't want us to get straight off and we're going to have perfect roads, but we're not going to have a ball diamond. That's not the sort of community I want to live in. I can live with a few potholes if that means getting to a ball diamond for my kids to play at. Just a comment on that. Thank you.
Yep. Any other, before I call a question on the amendment, any other comments?
Barbara.
Okay.
Barbara.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'd just like to say that Brian said that very well. He was concerned he didn't capture it, but I think he did capture it in a nutshell about community and making it a place to call home. And I think one of the reasons we are seeing a demand for increased policing is because there's not enough right now for our youth to get into other than trouble. And I'm not saying that's all youth. There's a lot of youth, great youth out there that are getting into what we can provide, but it's going to take more of those activities and the old town hall or the arena or the pool or the ball diamonds. So thank you, Brian, for putting that into perspective for me anyway.
Thanks, Barb. The one thing, it's not a popular probably opinion, but it is mine. So there's never enough for youth in a community's mind, because going back more than a couple of years to when I was a youth, you know, growing up in Malton like I did, Barb, that what's out there and available for kids now is at least 10 times what we had. And so I think sometimes people expect the township to take the place of parents, you know, and to supply everything. And I don't think that's right either. So there's a balance in there. But I do think we need to do our part for sure. And whether we need more or at least keep up what we're doing is the discussion part. Yeah, it was a very good point. Jason, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not disagreeing with Brian on the community end of it at all. I have 3 teenage daughters that, you know, I want them to be involved in the community as well as anybody. But I think we got to take a step back, what John just said, and it's a parenting thing, but it's also, we don't have a community anymore like we did. And I don't think we're ever gonna. You know, we look at the Holstein Optimist, it's a great thing out there. That's the main one we have in Southgate, I would say. As far as the ones in Dundalk, yeah, there is small ones, but it's such a small representative of the people. I just don't know how. I understand it's not a lot of money. I know we need some social programs. I'm just saying it's, as far as the policing, that's part of the problem. You know, everybody just wants everything for nothing, so they don't go to work. So instead, they're stealing something. Like, I know that's a right-wing thought. Everybody else think that, but there's no community like there used to be. When I was younger, we'd have a dance every weekend in the Dundalk Arena. We'd have this and that. We don't now. And I think as far as people think that all these people are going to use all these different activities, this and that, the kids can get anything they want on their cell phone. They talk all the time. I just don't know. Some of those projects to me are a waste of money for a small percentage of the population. But I do agree. You know, community is everything. But I really don't think there is a community like there used to be.
Thanks, Jason. And you hit on a really important part as well. We now, out of the tax base, are funding things that volunteer groups used to fund and the community used to fund in general. You know, when it was the village of Dundalk, the taxpayer never paid the full amount for a fire truck, or they never paid. There was some fire trucks that zero money came out of the tax bill. When they got their first rescue truck, that was volunteer groups got together with the firefighters and did a fundraiser, and I happen to be the treasurer on that, and in less than 3 months raised all the money for the rescue truck and the equipment that went in it. And you're not seeing that, and it's not just here, it's all over the place, that the volunteer groups are not contributing the funds to the different things like they used to. And they're not able to right now. But that's another thing that comes back to the tax burden. Brian?
Well, I don't disagree with John very often, but I'm going to disagree on that one, John. The local community raised over close to $15 million now for that new hospital in Markdale.
Yep.
Hospitals used to be on the provincial tax bill. And so, you know, things have changed. There's no doubt about it. The community's being asked to pay for different things now, i.e. hospitals instead of the fire trucks now. So I think there's as much community participation as there always was. It's just going towards different things. So I would respectfully disagree a little bit there, but I don't disagree with the sentiment of your argument.
No, I agree with you on that, Brian. My point, I think, had more to do with the amount and size of the different service clubs, and I don't remember too many days going by or weeks going by that there wasn't a ticket for something or a dance or a something to raise money from those. And so you're right. I think there's things that were paid for by others, that there's things like the hospital and different other things like that. But it's those clubs that were involved with the things right there that and it's just the time. It's times. Yep. It's
no, I agree with you. True enough.
Anything else besides the about the amendment before I call the question? Not seeing any. Anyone opposed to the amendment? Oops. Okay, let's do a recorded vote, please,
Sure.
because
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So a recorded vote called for the amendment to the main motion, which is to direct staff to explore options to have the blended tax rate fall between 3.5 and 4%. Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Nay.
Mayor Woodbury?
No.
Councillor Shearson?
No.
Councillor Frew?
No.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
No.
By a vote of 5-2, that has lost.
okay. Do we have a other suggestion?
So we're back to the main motion, which is on the screen now, which is to receive as information.
Okay.
We got the discussion going anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Any other discussion on the main motion? Not seeing any. Anyone opposed to the main motion? Looks pretty well carried to me. So that's the main motion.
Councillor Dobreen has her hand up.
Oh, do you?
I was opposed.
You're opposed?
Opposed.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to do a vote on that as well, Lindsay? And that way we're...
Because if I may clarify, by passing this for information, we are approving the 4.8% or thereabouts.
Yes.
No.
Brian?
No. My interpretation would be that we are simply receiving this budget for information at this point. There still will be an opportunity to actually approve the budget going forward.
Yeah.
So
true.
yes, we may not necessarily be opposed to the 4.8, but we are not approving 4.8 by approving this motion. Am I correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, and that we're recommending that council receives it for information. So again, not to pass. Barb?
Thank you.
So just thank you for correcting me. My terminology was not accurate. By not giving staff direction to change the percent, whether that's up or down, they are moving forward with the 4.8%. It didn't mean that we were approving it today, but we are not giving staff direction to change the 4.8% target. So thank you for clarifying that for me. I am opposed.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Lindsay, I'll let you do the vote then, please.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So we have a recorded vote on the main motion to recommend that council receive the budget information as information. Councillor Shipston,
Yes.
Councillor Rice,
No.
Councillor Dobreen,
Nope.
Deputy Mayor Milne,
Yay.
Councillor Shearson,
No.
Mayor Woodbury,
Yes.
Councillor Frew.
Yes.
By a vote of 4 to 3, that has carried.
Okay, thank you. And I think that's the way a vote on a budget should go. I don't think getting everybody in agreement. I think having the discussion is the valuable point. So I like seeing a vote split like that. So thank you, everyone. Next, we'll move on to 7.1.2, the cost of living index, and I'll need a mover and seconder to put the motion on the floor. Martin and second. Brian.
Well,
Okay.
if I could, just a question, what percent is Mr. or Councillor Shipston proposing in his motion?
Well, Lindsay, you can correct me if well, you can't correct me because I'm going to ask you a question. So, well, sure, go ahead, correct me. I don't know which way is proper or which way is more benefit of putting the motion on the floor with it blank so that we can discuss different numbers, or should it go on and then if this one fails, another one can come in with different numbers. So I don't know the correct way to do that.
So
and I think that probably gets to your point, Brian, of what numbers.
Yeah, I think what should be put on the floor was something, and then we can do an amendment if we have different ideas. Is the cleanest way to.
Perfect. Okay, so thanks for bringing that up, Brian. So Martin, you're on mute, so that's hasn't happened yet today. So
No, that's why I thought we'd talk about it and then we'll pick one after we discuss.
Yeah, well, the advice from Lindsay is to not do it that way, but to start off with a percentage and go from there.
It's just putting it on the floor. It doesn't mean that it can't be changed.
Yeah, we can amend that. So what would you like to put out there, Martin?
Well, I guess go middle range, 3%. We can talk about it then.
All right, so do I have a seconder for that? Brian will second it. Okay, discussion. Barbara?
So the budget that we just received for information had assumed a 3% cost of living increase. And now we're going to discuss whether we're in agreement with a 3% cost of living increase. And to Deputy Mayor Milne's argument that if we're not giving cost of living and following policy to give cost of living, then we're not following our own policy. So I think we should have had the discussion of the cost of living beforehand. I just needed to say that, but I don't know now. Are we being realistic and following our own policy?
Okay. It was, I think, a valid point about whether we should discuss it first or not, but we could have changed that when we confirmed the agenda too. So if everyone can keep that in mind, if there is something you think needs moved up in confirming the agenda, that we could amend it and move things up at the time. But thanks for bringing that up, Barb.
Thanks.
Okay. What does anyone else think with the 3%? We need more. It's awful quiet. Okay. Lindsay, I don't think this will be all one way or another, so if you would like to do the vote on it.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So,
Sorry, Kayla has something first.
oh, yeah, go ahead.
Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to comment in the report. It's saying that the wage increase wouldn't be effective until January 8th, but in reviewing our policy, that actually is not in line with our policy because we say January 1st. So I was wondering if we could update that. Originally, it was meant to help with administrative work because when it falls in the middle of a pay period, it does cause quite a bit of administrative work, but it's also going against policy. So I'd like to suggest moving it back to January 1st as it is in the policy.
Those administrators. Barb?
So the rest of this resolution also requires an option number, which I guess is, there's no option number on the 3% wage grid.
Yeah, it's 2, I believe. Liam.
Option 2?
Yeah. So I've just filled that in based on.
Okay, thank you.
And Kayla's is basically a friendly amendment to the motion, January 8th, swap for January 1st.
Okay, Martin, with that? And Brian?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Just so that, thanks for bringing that up, Kayla. So before we do the vote, did anyone want any discussion on that at all? The change of date? It's friendly anyways, and makes sense. Okay. All right, so we can go ahead with the vote then. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. So we have a recorded vote for cost of living at 3%. Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Dilbreen?
Opposed.
Councillor Rice?
No.
Councillor Shearson?
No.
Councillor Frew?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
By a vote of 4 to 3, that is carried.
Okay, thank you. I now have a motion that we resolve, the committee resolve back to the special council meeting at 12:08. I need a mover and seconder. Jim will move it and Jason will second it. Any discussion on that? Is anyone opposed? Okay, it's passed. Next we have that need a mover and seconder that we as council receive the staff report as information. Mover and seconder for that, please. Brian and Martin, any discussion on that? Okay, seeing none, is anyone opposed? Seeing none, declare that passed. And that I need mover and seconder for 9.2, and that would be the 3% increase January 1 and option 2 on the grid. Mover and seconder for that, please. Brian, and a seconder, please. Barbara. Okay. Any discussion? Okay. Is anyone opposed? And that is carried. Report from municipal officers. Kayla. We're on 10.1.
Hello. This is a report, the Administrative Finance and Bylaw position that was previously approved, we would like to request to post it internally only. So are asking for council approval on that.
Okay. Thank you. Did I get a mover and seconder for that?
I missed it if so, but that might have been my error.
No, okay.
Barbara and Martin.
Barbara and Martin. Okay, good. So discussion, Barbara.
So if you are indicating, Kayla, that there are internal candidates that would be qualified and maybe interested in the position, will then it be an automatic backfill of those positions externally? I mean, I don't see this. We are approving the internal posting of this position. We're going to need to backfill any positions that are vacated as a result of this. Does it have to come back to council, or can staff just carry on?
Yes, if it's an internal external posting, I believe staff could just carry on if it was to backfill. We also have contract positions that are ending, so possibly it would be one of those people that would fill this position, and then we wouldn't have to backfill.
Okay, my question, Mayor Woodbury, was, let's leave it to staff to figure out how they manage what happens as a result of this position, is all I'm saying.
Okay. Michael, and then Jason.
I don't know. I think we should be opening up these positions. We shouldn't just be keeping it closed, who's in-house only. I mean, we don't know who's in the community, who's out there that's just finished school, that's just moved here, that's looking for a job, that wants to relocate to a job. I still think that these jobs should be opened up to everybody, that everybody gets a chance at this, not just because we have someone in-house that may be qualified. There may be someone that's a little bit more qualified outside that's looking for a job. I think we need to make it open and transparent to everybody in the community.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Jason?
Oh, Michael said what I was going to say better than I could.
Barbara?
So through you, the process would be for them to propose an amendment to direct staff to do both an internal and external posting.
Kayla?
Yes, I appreciate those comments, and I can definitely see that point of view. What we try and encourage is movement within, and then as Councillor DeBreen mentioned, then there would be backfill that eventually would become an external posting if there was availability of that.
Okay, thank you. I take a bit of a different look at how to do some of these things like this. I once worked for a fire chief that said, give me a good employee that's trainable, and I'll take them over a packed resume. And so if we have somebody on contract or that's working in another position in the township, and they're a good employee and they're trainable, have some interest and education in that area, I just for how things work and the relationships in the workplace and the different things like that, I have a tendency to lean towards going that way versus bringing in an outsider that may interview well and could destroy how things are done. They could also work in really well and bring new ideas. I get that, but I kind of like that idea of good employee. You already have their track record because you've been seeing what they're doing, and trainable. To me, those are the important things. So I lean more towards the internal, but that's just my take on things. Any other comments? Okay, so if we do want it internal, external, someone's going to have to move that amendment and get it seconded. And if not, we just have the main motion as it sits. Okay. Okay, Michael, and then Jason.
I'll make that motion to make it external and internal.
Okay. Jason, comment, or are you going to second that?
No, I was going to do that, or I'll second it. Yeah.
Okay, seconded. So that's what's on the table, is that amendment to make it external as well. Any discussion on that? Just on that amendment. Go ahead, Barbara.
I'm always supportive of finding out who's interested in joining our organization. This does not in any way prevent an internal candidate from being the ideal candidate. It just provides us with more information, and those individuals can be kept in mind. If they're not the successful candidate, they may actually be more suited to another position. So I can go either way. It is an additional expense to advertise externally, but it doesn't exclude anyone from our organization from applying for this position, and I would encourage them to do so.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments about the amendment? Lindsay?
Did we have a seconder?
Yes, Michael moved it and Jason seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay, not seeing any other discussion on this, and it's just on the amendment to go external at the time. Is anyone opposed? Besides me? No, then that would be carried. And I don't think we need a recorded vote on that, Lindsay, or do you want?
I would rather, yes, just for the minutes, keeping in
Mayor
line with what
Woodbury?
we've done in the past.
Okay, yeah, Barb.
When you said it's not just external, it is internal and external simultaneously.
Yeah, the amendment is just to change, add external.
To add.
Sorry if I
Thank you.
misspoke that. Yeah.
No, it could have been my mis-ears.
Well, okay. All right, so actually, I was the only one opposed to it, so I'll call the vote again, and we can just go straight from there. Anyone opposed? Okay, so now that's carried without you having to go through the whole recorded vote. So, okay. Next, economic development, 10.2.1. I need a mover and seconder to put this on the floor. It's a purchase and sale agreement to Greenwood to relocate to a larger thing. Barbara and Martin? Hi,
Sure.
Terry.
Hi guys, how's everybody today?
Well, we're getting somewhere. I don't know where, but we're getting somewhere. What would you like to tell us about this?
Well, I'll give a quick summary for everybody. So back on September 15th, Council approved the sale of a 12-acre lot in the Echo Park Phase 1 to Greenwood. And on October 20th, Council approved the cancellation of the sale of approximately 20 acres in Echo Park Phase 1 to Flato as per their request. Upon completion of the Flato survey, the acreage of that lot was calculated to be approximately 27 acres. And today we are here to seek Council's approval to relocate Greenwood from the 12-acre lot to the larger 27-acre lot that was previously spoken for by Flato. The relocation to the larger lot will allow Greenwood to plan for future expansion and further job creation. And Greenwood has already proven to be a community partner. They sponsored the Santa Claus Parade, and they're on board to get sample products into the hands of Southgate restaurants, cafes, and community groups, as per a suggestion made by Councillor DeBreen. This partnership would see crops grown in Southgate, processed in Southgate, and utilized in Southgate by our local businesses and community groups, creating a truly unique farm-to-table supply chain within a 15-minute radius, thus supporting the economic development climate change initiatives, along with our job creation initiatives. I've had the privilege of being the lead on this project. However, this has been a collaborative project since day one, with council members and staff members touring the Ice River facilities in Shelburne and Feversham back in June, and with all of the staff input and support since that time. So this is a proud moment for the township, Not only did Greenlid choose Southgate for its new home, but they're already making expansion plans for the future. So staff recommends that council approve this new purchase and sales agreement to permit Greenlid to locate to the new lot.
Great, thanks, Terry. Yeah, this is truly a success story in my mind, that from that little tour in June to now, and having a company that truly, I think I wasn't here for the envisioning of the eco park, but I think Greenlid is a company that is truly what was intended in my mind, to end up in an area like that. And I think this is, you know, things have to work out, but to move along this swiftly and get things done, yeah, I think this has been very good. Questions or comments? Barbara?
All for it.
Thank you. This is exciting, Terry, and I'm glad that that little tidbit of, you know, that package that you provided us that triggered that conversation actually was well received. So, you know, thanks for giving us that feedback. The 4 acres that are environmentally protected, there's a comment about a potential parking lot. Is there an aerial shot of this 27 acres that could be, that we could see it and understand where the marginal land is? And certainly that would require Grand River Conservation Authority involvement, I would imagine, but you know, depending on what kind of surface a parking lot would entail, you know, it would have to get all those clearance. But I like the idea of them taking that anyway, and protecting the 4 acres would be great. Do we have an aerial look at the eco park with the 27 acres?
I can see if I can pull that up. I don't know if my bandwidth is quite large enough. Clint, are you?
We'll turn our video off.
Yeah, let me see if I can. Clint,
that won't make a difference. Terry, can you flip it to me quickly? Or Clint, if you
well, you just go on the GS public site and then just layer the conservation on it.
Okay. Give me a minute.
I do have one in a. I might have one on a PDF. Let me check. Hold on.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, this, what would happen in that area would have to do with a site plan agreement as well, and have to go through, what you say, sogging, or would that be grand there? That'd be grand.
It's grand. So we did have our preliminary site planning meeting with Clint, and so they're using Christine Loft Planning, and Clint and Christine Loft had a look at it. It's actually a bit of a, I don't know if they would actually be allowed to park on there or not. That would be up to conservation. Let me see, I have a contour map. Oh, here it is. I think I just got one.
This is generally the 20 acres that borders Ida, right?
There we go. It is the 20 acre, it's 27 acres because we're including the per se green space, hazard land, EP land. Is that Lindsay?
Yeah, sorry. I'm just.
No, that's great.
The GIS doesn't like me. I don't know why my.
No. So
why that's not working.
It takes a lot of bandwidth to pull it up.
That could be why then.
Yeah, I find when I'm already on a video call and then I try to pull up the detailed mapping, it won't actually work because the internet's just too slow.
No problem. That's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's something I can send out to everyone if you'd like to see that. I can take a screenshot and send it out after when we have a little more internet power. Yes, Barbara?
Yep.
Sorry, Mayor Woodbury, through you. Maybe that could just be, if you're bringing a report to council, as you mentioned earlier in the meeting in January, maybe you'll show that on a mapping, you know, where everybody is kind of planted. That would be great.
Okay.
Thanks for trying, though.
Yep.
No problem.
Jason?
No, I just want to make a comment. No, this sounds really good. I'm happy with it. I guess maybe this is to Dave, and maybe I should know this, but you know, it's a pretty substantial sale, almost 900,000. Where do those funds go into which area? Maybe I should know this, but
So
You will
yeah,
in a minute.
those funds will be put into a eco park development reserve so every land sale where the money that we receive goes into, Liam puts it into an account that will go towards future development of other industrial lands.
So Jason, on your budget, if you go to the operating budget on economic development and go to the very top, you'll see the number that Barbara talked about earlier is about 6.8. And then you'll see it being transferred out of there into reserve, and then the balance at the bottom is 0 after expenses.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Barbara?
Maybe I just would like a little more clarification. Dave, you said that it goes into the Eco Park Land Sale Reserve for future industrial land development. But doesn't some of this help pay for the road that's going through? I thought that the whole idea of selling this land was to help with the bypass road, help with infrastructure. We've got to bring in water and wastewater down Ida Street, various other things. Like, yes. I'm sorry, maybe it does and I just misunderstood.
Yeah, so that would be what eco or industrial land development would be, putting the road, the services in, you know, and if land become available, you could dip into it and buy other land for development if we want to continue to go down that road.
Oh, okay, thanks very much, Dave.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Okay, I'll call the question then. Is anyone opposed to this motion? Well, doesn't get much better than that. Looks like we all agree, and that is just absolutely wonderful news. So now I need mover and seconder for the bylaw. Barbara and Jason. Okay, any discussion on the bylaw? Okay, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for bylaw 2021-158, purchase and sale agreement with Greenlid. Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
Councillor Rice?
yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Frew?
Yes. Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Great, thank you, and congratulations on your work on this, Terry. And wow, what a great thing to do in your first while here, to be involved in something of this nature. And so thank you and the rest of staff that's been working on this. So looking
Absolutely.
very.
It's definitely a collaborative effort with a lot of people involved. So thank you to everybody.
Yep. Well, I think that's the only way this stuff works. So yeah, greatly appreciated. Anyone want to move or second the confirming bylaw? Brian will move it, and Jim adjusted his glasses, so I'm going to say he seconded it. Any discussion? Any discussion on the confirming bylaw? Okay, Lindsay.
Thank you, Mayor Woodbury. Recorded vote called for the confirming bylaw. Councillor Frew?
Yes. Yes.
Deputy Mayor Milne?
Yay.
Councillor Rice?
Yes.
Councillor Shipston?
Yes.
Councillor Dobreen?
In favor.
Councillor Shearson?
Yes.
Mayor Woodbury?
Yes.
By a vote of 7-0, that's carried.
Okay, and Brian moves that we adjourn. So at hey, 12:30, right on the nose. Appreciate everybody. good discussions today. Like I said earlier, to me, just having that the split votes all these different ways, and that just tells me that, you know, we've got the good different points of view that that we can talk about and move into different things with. So greatly appreciated with everything. So have a good day, and I don't know who else is going to be at the meeting tonight. The development charges public meeting. No, the
Official plan.
official plan. Yes. See, I knew it was something. But I'll be there, and we'll see how it goes. Barbara, actually, I don't need to do that. You could just talk because the meeting was adjourned.
Right. Well, I didn't want to interrupt, and because we don't have a member's privilege or anything, I just wanted to check in with council with regard to Saturday. I know that there's the Flato Edgewood Suites open house of the actual suites, but we also have the Santa Claus Parade, which is at 1 o'clock. So far, our dignitaries, I'm just waiting to hear back from MP Alex Ruff. He needs to figure out whether or not, I guess, he'll be back from Ottawa in time. That's always, you know, weather permitting as well. The rest have other commitments. I know Warden Hicks is going to be at Edgewood Suites for 11 o'clock, so he is not able to attend the parade and other commitments. So I was just wondering who is going to be coming to the Holstein Parade. That there isn't refreshments, so there's no need to arrive at 11 o'clock. We won't be allowed into the depot. That's off limits due to COVID protocols. And the horses and wagon will arrive, I'm guessing rain or shine, it goes off. So anybody, can we, Brian will be there, yay. Martin, Michael. You'll be at the parade, John?
That's my intention. Yep. Now,
Awesome.
what I'll do is I'm going to meet Buck at Edgewood at 11, and then hi bye and go. So
okay.
Yeah. My big thing is I got to minimize the amount that I'm either standing or, like today, sitting, because things just don't work well. So
Jason is going to provide us with, so Jason, you're coming, right? Because you're bringing the hay bales. So there'll be, you can sit, and we'll, when you can also stand on the wagon as well. Jim, are you coming to the parade?
No, I won't be there.
Okay, we'll miss you. All right, well, thank you very much. We'll see you Saturday.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay.